Well, hey, folks, welcome to the pre-show. Boom. Here we are. Monday night again. It seems like every time I type Monday night when I'm putting up the promos for the show, they get closer and closer together. It's like, didn't I just do a Monday night show? Well, it's Monday night. Welcome. Just getting set up here over in the pre-show. Let's put up our banners. Boom, boom. Where'd it go? There it is. You know, it doesn't seem that bright until I turn all the cameras on and stuff. Then it's like, holy crap. There we go. All right, we're ready to roll. It's 9:01. And I got our sound going. Bring that down, or our link going to the radio station, which picks up at 4 minutes and 26 seconds, 25 seconds after the hour. Hey, Susie Q, over in the chat room. Great to see you. I'm seeing a lot of you these days. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for being here. Sarah Yusuf. Am I taking Labor Day Monday off? Maybe. What's that, Rainey?
I said possibly.
Possibly, Rainey said. All depends. We're going to be in the throes of the new move. For the 1st through the 10th, we'll be moving over to the new digs. And I took a couple of pictures today, and I was just going to update you all on that. Hey, Morgan Snow. Hey, Field Guy. Uncle Dave Potter. Did you get to see your chiropractor today, Uncle Dave? I hope so. Morgan Snow, I hope everything's going well over there for you. And, pleasant evening, Mr. Potter. Hope you're doing better, she says. Morgan Snow says to Uncle Dave. So.
Can we all just call him Uncle Dave?
We all call him Uncle Dave. Everybody calls him Uncle Dave. N-U-C-A Dave. I took a couple of pictures of the new place, and I'm going to see if I can load some of these up before we actually start the show. Let's see what we got here. Because they're just fun to look at. It's a personal update, and I got about a minute and a half to load up a couple of pictures. Let's see what we get here. And boom, boom. So the pre-show, I'm not talking about a whole lot right here. I'm just prepping everything for what I want to do. So, we were over. John Learman came over today and looked at the place with us. So it's nice. It's a little dirty, a little stinky. Rainey went over and did some cleaning today. Miraculous difference. So, save as. I'm going to call this New House. 1, and we're going to put it in our graphics folder. Boom. We got about half a minute left, and we're going to be ready to roll. So, my child likes to do all this weird stuff on my phone. Okay, here we go, folks. We're going to go dark, and we'll be back in a few seconds with the live show. Stand by.
Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad, so he can take me to Disneyland.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.
Hey, folks, happy Monday evening. Welcome to the program. I am your host, Scotty Roberts, of this, my show, the Intrepid radio broadcast. And you folks who are all here, you've been here before. You've been here for years with me. Thank you for being here. Thanks for all of you who are over in the chat room now. I just want to say a special hello to David Armstrong. Good to see you in here tonight, brother. And let's see. And everybody else that I said hi to in the pre-show, welcome to the show. If you're listening over on the audio version only at the radio station site, that's Odyssey Radio, and it's ODYSY radio.com. You can also catch this show in its video simulcast in 4 different locations, 3 of them on Facebook, my Facebook, Odyssey Radio Facebook, and Intrepid Radio Facebook, as well as our YouTube channel. And YouTube is probably one of the best places to pick up the chat room because you can interact more freely over there. And come on over, join the chat room, say hi to everybody while you're there. If you're not subscribed to my channel, subscribe. Hit the thumbs up button. That helps this program in its standing over on YouTube. And if you want to join the channel, that means a little ching out of your pocket. You can click the join button, and there's 3 different ways you can do that. That'll show you how to do that. And so I'd appreciate that. So, hey, everybody, Roy Palvido, good to see you, brother. I think because I've never heard you say your last name, it's pronounced Palvido, not Palvadu. I have no idea, so I think that's correct. Grumpy Stack, good to see you. Field Guy, Sarah Yusuf, everybody else, Susie Q, David Armstrong, Uncle Dave, everybody, Field Guy, everybody gathering over in the chat room. Welcome. Glad to have you tonight. I want to start off by asking you a question. We posed this in the captain's cabin late in the show on Friday night, I believe it was, and we just hit on this. And I wanted to make it the topic for tonight. I want to ask you, what is the most earth-moving event in history that you think took place? What is the greatest thing that ever happened to us? What is the way I posed the question in the actual ad for tonight would be, what is, I got to get over to it to get the exact wording of it. So what's the most important message do you believe that was ever given to mankind? Now, there's a reason I bring that up, because that's what we're going to talk about tonight when talking about Bigfoot. And we'll get to all that in just a minute. I want to give a little personal note to everybody who watches this show and follows, well, my family. If you are part of this show, you've noticed how hard it is to not be part of my family, seeing as my little girls invade the space quite often. I think they're pretty busy right now because you know what? Tomorrow is the first day of school. Yes, it's the most wonderful time of the year. So everybody goes back to school tomorrow, I think. And they got a weird schedule. The 2 older ones go back to school tomorrow. The little one's home. Then the little one goes back on Wednesday, and the 2 older ones stay home. Then they're all back on Thursday. So it's weird. I don't know why they do that. It's an indoctrination. It's what do they call that when you go and you get all set up and everybody gets to know what's going on? Not indoctrination. Blah 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 blah. Field guy, you're adopted. All we have to do is make it legal. He asked in the chat room. So I want to show you a picture. You all know that we're moving again. I hate moving with a passion. I had said this house right here that we're in right now would be the last place we move before we buy property and build. But of course, the owner of this place wanted to sell it. We don't want to buy this. And so at the end of our lease, we're out. So we've got we actually have till the end of September to move, but we've got until the 10th because we found a place we have to move into on the 1st. And I said, we'll just be here until the 10th. And so we went over today, and I'm going to show you this picture, guys. Let me take off my big banner. I'm going to add this to the stream. Boom, there you go. There's the kids running around in the front yard. That's the little house. It's actually got amazing square footage. It's got a big front yard, a huge backyard, a fenced-in backyard, and then a backyard that extends beyond that. You can see way to the left of the house, there's a shed way in the back for a lot of our stuff that's in the garage now, snow blowers, lawnmowers, rakes, and shovels, and all of that. But if you stand at the front door, you see Rowan standing right in the middle of that picture. Behind her is the front door of the house. This is what you see when you get outside the front door. Boom. There is the water tower again. Right now, we presently live on the other side of that water tower. There's railroad tracks right on the other side of that tower, and we're right behind that. So we didn't really escape the nefarious water tower with the G5 towers emitting radio waves up on top there, which you can see in that photo. But the house meters out better. Rainey was doing her metering of the house, and it's a lot better over there. And yeah, that's the house. Grumpy Stack and Susie Q and everybody else. So it's very possible. Now we're going to be renting this house again because, again, we still want to buy. But for now, this works. There's a possibility. Even Rainey said, I could live here. I could buy this house. So there's some work we have to do to it and some things we're going to do. Invest as inexpensively as possible in things that the owner doesn't really care to do. But if we make some of those improvements, we are working toward the possibility of doing a rent for an option to buy. So it's a nice enough place that we'd live there. We got to do some work in the basement, some things like that. It's semi-finished. We got to paint the floors, paint the walls, the concrete walls in the room that's bigger than this room that we use for our studios now. But Rainey wants to tuck me away in one of the other rooms. In the big rooms downstairs, the big room is 28 by 28. But it's got the water heater and the modern furnace, small units there on the side. The other two rooms are just big. So they're like 20 by 20 rooms down there, 20 by 18, something like that. And Dave Potter will help. Dave, we might do a mural on one of those walls where we're going to do the studio. So we'll see. But that's just a personal update. That's what we're going to be doing for the next, what is today? Today's the 29th. So we've got about 13 days and we'll be all moved into that new place. So it should be fine. Paint walls. Is that what you said? You'll help paint walls? There it is. GoFundMe for the new house. Yeah, I could use it. I can tell you that. I don't come on here screeching for money. But man, when you move in from one rental property to another, and this could be a topic all on its own, you might as well take that money and put it into a down payment on a new house. It costs on average about $4,000 to $5,000 base to move to a new place if you're renting, going from rental place to rental place. And then you don't own. And then there's all these restrictions. And then, you got to be out on the 3rd. Oh, you got to be in on the 1st. Things like that. So you know what it's all like, folks. You get it. So I'm not one to beg for money like that. But if you in any way want to, if you want to persuade me to do a GoFundMe, field guy, we'll do it. Because we could sure use a little extra cash. We are We are hemorrhaging cash to move. And things that you could put into a better situation. We could go get a bank loan for a house, but I don't think we'd qualify at this point for the size of house we need to have 5 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms at least and stuff like that. Maybe that's a first world problem right there. So I'm not going to cry in my soup. We're doing all right, but man, we're stretching it this week. So put out some good thoughts for us anyway. And that we'll make it and everything will work out just fine. So that's enough on that. I was asking you what you thought about what is the most significant information, the most important information ever given to humanity. Now, you're going to get different answers on this topic, of course. So if I ask you right now to type into the chat room over there, what do you believe is the most significant event to ever happen to humanity? What do you think is the most significant, important information that has ever been given to humankind? Would your answer revolve around religion? Would it be Jesus was the best thing that ever happened to humanity? Would it be, if you're not a Christian, if you're Muslim, would it be Muhammad? Would it be the Quran? Would it be, and I don't understand enough about it to say the spirituality of? What would it be that you would say is still, Sarah Yusuf asked in the chat room, you still having shows during the week? Yes, we'll have shows all the way along. The only way we will not have shows is if it gets dicey during the move, which I don't foresee happening. The ability to grip with opposable thumbs, as Sarah Yusuf, that's probably a pretty good thing. And I've got a different answer for you, though. And that answer comes from somebody else. And if you were here with us Friday, you heard a little bit about this. But there was a message conveyed quoting the most significant information and the most important message ever given to humanity. And the message conveyed was conveyed by a Sasquatch elder. Now, I don't know what a Sasquatch elder is exactly. There's no tribe of Sasquatch that we know, but he's an elder of the Sasquatch tribe. I would liken it, without looking into it and being overly educated about it, I would liken that to a New Age thing. It's like, are you a Pleiades elder? Well, I don't know. I'm an Atlantean elder, but not Pleiades. Please tell me more. Now, I'm going to have a mocking voice through some of this, but a sense of self-awareness, sense of self and awareness of reality, says Professor Bauer. Bingo. I think that's pretty spot on. What's the most significant thing that's ever been given to mankind? The big question I would have is, who gave us that? Where did that come from? Is that sense of self and that awareness of reality? Perhaps we can talk about this a little bit in the after show, the captain's cabin, Professor Bauer. But who bequeaths sense of self or awareness of reality? Is that an evolutionary thing? Oh, boom. Oh, yeah, we were primordial slime one day and then a bunch of monkeys for millions of years. And then all of a sudden we have self-awareness, sentience, awareness of reality. So what is it that makes that happen? What does she say? Sasquatches would have their own culture, says Sarah Yusuf. I agree. But who's a Sasquatch elder and who raised him to that? Why, yes, I'm an Atlantean elder, says Romeldian. There you go. Bite from the tree of knowledge, says Sarah Yusuf, which brings up a whole nother topic that we've talked about before. I love how we look at how it's been so watered down in Judeo and Christian teaching, maybe even Muslim teaching to a certain degree. The first man and the first woman were ordered by God to not eat of the tree of the tree at the center of the garden, is what I grew up learning, those words. And then we find out it's the tree of knowledge, the tree of life at the center of garden. Then when you start digging into the passage and looking into the languages, looking at how it's written, there's actually 2 trees in the garden. One was the tree of knowledge. The other was the tree of life. And it says that Adam and Eve took a bite of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, it says in Judeo-Christian mythology. I only use the word mythology. Don't go apeshit on me. I only use mythology to describe the mythos of the religion and of the beliefs, not relegating it to a false story. That's up to you to decide. But in Judeo-Christian mythology, it says that the man and the woman, that they ate of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, and they were naked instantly. Boom, poof. They were naked. Well, what does nakedness have to do with the tree of knowledge? Is it a metaphoric word? Naked and open before the God of the universe, naked and open, knowing all things, or naked physically? But then you see all kinds of sexual attributes added into all the prohibitions and things from the Garden of Eden. Well, then it says, and the Elohim said, the humans have eaten of the tree of knowledge and have become like us. Let us therefore go down and prevent them from also eating of the tree of life, lest they become immortal. And so they blocked them from eating of the tree of life. So that's a very interesting take on that when you start looking at that. So when you look at the question then, what was the most important information ever given to mankind? According to Sasquatch elder DawaOutah LomaKatsi. DawaOutah LomaKatsi, 2 words. He's also known as Sunbow Truebrother. And he's a native of British Columbia, Canada, who's had contact with the Sasquatch most of his life, he says. And he considers that this information I'm going to share with you tonight, the most important information ever given to mankind. And now if I took this, by the way, and I look up his name, what you get, he's a Bigfoot researcher. I want to see whatever he says here. He's an experiencer. It says here when you're I'm looking for what it says about him. I'm not going to get into that right now. It's too much to get into. So, but he's an experiencer. He's a Bigfoot believer. At first, I thought when it said he was an elder, I thought, oh, maybe he's a Native American elder, because the Native Americans have a lot of stories of hairy man, Sasquatch, what we call Bigfoot, and so on. So we're not alone, says Professor Bauer. We are not alone. I agree with that. I don't think we're alone. And I'm a firm believer, if you will, that Sasquatch is a living being that exists, a race of beings. But this information that was passed on, you're going to listen to this and you're going to find that the message isn't a bad one. But is this the message of Sasquatch to humanity? Let's go through these. There's a whole bunch of these. First one starts, my and your people used to be close brothers, living side by side. Now, this is what, I can't remember how to pronounce his name, DawaOutah LomaKatsi said, Sunbow Truebrother, we'll call him. Sunbow Truebrother, Sasquatch elder, says this was channeled to him or given to him through Sasquatch. My and your people used to be close brothers, living side by side in the early years of your human species, when you could still sit in the council of the star elders. What do you think of that statement? Now, let's remove all the doubts that start to come up and the skepticism and the guffawing that we get. Oh, Sasquatch passed this on to him, huh? Let's take the statement as it stands. If Sasquatch or some being is channeling something to somebody that says, we used to live side by side in the early ages of your species, when you could still sit in the council of the star elders. What is that? Who are the star elders? I'm sure we could look all this stuff up and, in a sense, exegete this stuff, but let's just go on. We were your elder brothers, protecting and teaching you. We helped your species to learn, to grow, to adapt to this home planet where you were created, on which we've been living since long before your conception. So says Sasquatch to Sunbow Rainbow. What was his name? Sunbow Truebrother says this is what Sasquatch says. Now, I am one that when I wrote my book on the Nephilim, I talked about all the different forms of Nephilim that have been seen around the world, or at least things that can be attributed to Nephilim or to giants and so on and things like that. Sasquatch was one that I mentioned. And it's the tall, is this a remnant of the Rephaim or of the Elohim or of the Nephilim? It's an interesting question to ask. There's no way to really trace this other than to listen what people have to say. So here we go again with what we were talking about on Friday about belief. What do you choose to believe about these things? Maybe we look at that and does he say anything about the separation? Asks Sarah Yusuf. Oops, that's Matthew Sainsbury. And see, this scrolls as I start to click on somebody's comment to show it. It scrolls. What does he say about the separation? Well, let's see if it goes on. We'll go on and find out. That was the first thing, by the way. My and your people used to be close brothers, living side by side, when humans could still sit in the council of the star elders. So that's interesting. Who are the star elders? Be interesting. The next thing he said to Moonbeam Sunbow, God, what was his name? Sunbow Truebrother. It's like I brought up the other night, John Ward and I, when we were doing the radio show several years ago, we decided to have a New Age night. And we renamed ourselves. We played tinkling bells and sparkly music in the background and changed our names to Stardust Pleiades Moonbrother and Pink Angel Glow Dust, something like that. So that's how I always react to those names. Sorry, that's my prejudice, my bias. That's how I react to those names when I hear them. But Sarah Yusuf says aliens. Maybe so. Maybe so. Sasquatch goes on to say, our people, like yours, was bioengineered by the star elders. But we were born many aeons before you were. Our conceptors added to their alien genetics the DNA of the most evolved and adapted species of that era, just like they did to create your species much later, with the DNA of other evolved large primates. This is why our genetics and yours are so closely related that our species can interbreed. This is also why your species and ours are the only two having spliced genes on this home planet. So we come from the same star seeds. Gets into the whole issue of the star seed theory, making us relatives. But our earthly ancestors are different. So we're not your ancestors, but your elder brothers, says Sasquatch. And so now it's very interesting. If you look at some of the new technology that's being incorporated into all the talk of all the research for Bigfoot and all of this, they're finding when they find hair and they find DNA in the ground and they find things like this, they're finding that in places like Ohio, like the Northwest of the United States, they're finding that it's primate DNA, but it doesn't match any primate we know. And there's also human DNA in the mix. And so, hey, hi, Rainey. Everybody say hi to Rainey. She can hear you. She'll channel you. So according to Sasquatch, we are Sasquatch's older brothers, or they are our older brothers, and that we can interbreed with them. Maybe when you start to see the Sasquatch technology, the stuff that's examining the scientific experimentation of hairs and DNA in the ground, I forget what they call that. But all of that is something that seems to indicate that there might be something to that, to the whole starseed thing. Of course, some of you are already believers that we're starseeds, that we were a seeded planet. The creation didn't take place here. We evolved here as seeded from other places. It's very interesting stuff. Uncle Dave says, hi, Rainey. So the next thing he says, Sasquatch says, my people was created as part of a cosmic plan to allow ancient souls of star beings to incarnate on this young planet and help it evolve into an intergalactic outpost of consciousness while discovering its many resources and life forms. Now, I tell you, the language and the wording used is one that makes me instantly step back from it and go, I can't say that's not true and that doesn't exist, but man, you got to drag me into that theory. One of saying that Sasquatch are the cosmic souls, the ancient souls, in a greater cosmic plan of star beings to incarnate this planet, come in the flesh on this planet. And so, is this why Sasquatch seems so elusive? Are they spirit beings? But yet there's physical leavings you can find left behind, hair and things like that. Footprints. Do spirits leave footprints? I don't know. So is this who Sasquatch is? Created part of a greater cosmic plan? What do you think about that? This is part of the great message, the greatest message of all, according to Stardust Bowbeam, that my brain, I'm mocking a little bit, but Sunbow Truebrother says, this is what? Maybe I should have Sunbow Truebrother on the show one of these times to talk to us and see what he has to say about this. So the next one, he says, we were also gifted with powerful psychic abilities that we have kept to this day, including telepathy, mind reading, remote viewing, hypnosis, astral projection, dematerialization, teleportation, shape-shifting, and permeating consciousness. Your first ancestors, too, were gifted with those same psychic abilities, but your evolutionary course has largely depleted your gifts, as well as your longevity. Now, that's interesting. Could this account for all the things we seem to know about the elusive Bigfoots and Sasquatches? That they have the ability, they have these wild psychic abilities, they have telepathy, they know when you're there before you know they know you're there. Remote viewing, hypnosis, astral projection. Good night. I love you, little child.
I found all these boxes.
I know. Well, some of them you did. And your first ancestors, too, he said. Dematerialization, teleportation, shape-shifting. Maybe why when you see a Sasquatch and you go, what was that? And you look back and there's a bird. And you go, oh, it was just a bird moving. Oh, what happened to that Sasquatch I saw? Did he teleport out? Did he dematerialize? Did he shapeshift into something else? Is that likely? Is that something that maybe we have no idea how big the universe is? Maybe this is our universe. Maybe this really is what's there. Huh. So, Unoffendable, welcome to the show. And, I know who that is. And so, here's the questions we ask. He goes on there, in that same point, likewise, we, the Sasquatch, can read minds and the intentions of others. That's why those fools who chase us like beasts with guns and infrared glasses will never catch a glimpse of any of us. Our telepathic, now, by the way, using the word fool, that would seem at first blush to be, that's not so advanced. That sounds kind of down in the dirt. But fool is also a word that is used. It's even used biblically. You fools. Gandalf said it. Run, you fools. So our telepathic abilities allow us to foresee who's coming and feel their intentions. So we can hardly ever be surprised by one of yours, except maybe when we are deeply asleep or when one of your fast-moving vehicles comes our way. Otherwise, we show ourselves to be your people, only to frighten away some unwelcomed intruders. Or we show yourselves to your people, only to frighten away some unwelcomed intruders, or in the rare cases when one of you is willing and able to communicate peacefully in spirit with us. Now, for me, I'm going to state here, this starts to take on Carl Sagan's Purple Dragon in my garage type of a scenario. This is the way I start to look at it. Carl Sagan had a point he made once when talking about the way people who support weird beliefs will justify. I have a purple dragon in my garage. Carl Sagan responds, well, can I see him? Well, not really, because he's invisible. The purple dragon in my garage exists, but he's invisible, so you can't see him. Well, how do you know he's there? Well, he'll only manifest himself, this purple dragon in my garage, to those who believe. Well, can we see his footprints? Why don't we put flour on the floor to see if we can trace his footsteps? The purple dragon in my garage levitates, so he won't leave any footprints. And so you see how the progression of answers back, well, this is my God, this is my belief system. I believe in star children. I believe in Sasquatch, whatever it might be. But these arguments being put forward here, it's not just a manifesto that's being presented. It's also an apologetic for why you can't see them. Why don't you see them? Well, that's because those fools chase us. We have the abilities to block what they see. And when the rare occasions they do, it's by accident, is what they're saying. He goes on and says, as we are incarnated beings, in flesh beings, there are plenty of physical proofs of our existence, but we conceal usually most traces and offer proper burial to our dead in undisclosed protected locations, inaccessible to your species. So might that be interdimensional? Might it be somewhere else, deep within the ground? Things like that. So Sasquatch goes on to Moonbeam Stardust here and says, likewise, when one of yours succeeds in taking pictures of one of ours and publishes them, we can hear the thoughts of those seeing it and feel the fears, the hatred, the ridicule we're subjected to in the uncivilized enslaving, and the uncivilization enslaving your people. This hurts our soul, says Sasquatch. And again, it's like anything else you're being asked to, in a sense, put your belief system into. I look at this and I start to question it because it all sounds like an apologetic for why Sasquatch can't be found. Is this an earth-shattering message to humanity? Or is this it's the same, as we used to say, same shit, different ship. It's the same message you hear about a lot of things like this. Starseed theory, Pleiadian theory, reptilian theory, all of these things that are out there, they all have apologetics like this attached to them. Trying to say, here's why you can't see us. Here's why you don't. And it hurts our soul. So there's the big question. Harry and the Hendersons comes to mind, says Morgan Snow over in the chat room. There was an animated film that came out not long ago, a couple of years ago, about explorers who found a Bigfoot. And it's a cartoon, but it's really well done, I thought. And it presented the case pretty well, too. I don't even know what that's called. If anybody can look that up, you can see it. Matthew Sainsbury says, I got to learn about the apologetic word during your David series when I first saw you, Scotty. Well, thanks, Matthew. Yeah, the apologetic is what's an apologetic? It's when you are writing something to, in a sense, you're not apologizing, but you are trying to think of the exact definition of that. You're writing something to, like in the case of King David, make him look better than he may have been. It's an apologetic. It's something that's written to explain to the reader, the viewer, the believer, why they ought to believe in this, because they're painting a better picture of him than he might have been. Same with the Sasquatch. It's not a better picture of Sasquatch. It's just an apologetic that tells you this is why you can't see us. This is why, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Sasquatch goes on and says, some of us still live thousands of years and see your earthly kingdoms come and go, like leaves on trees throughout the seasons. That's interesting. There's a ... after that. So he apparently had more to say about that. But they say they live thousands of years. And I thought Maybe that's why we don't see a lot of Bigfoot graves. They live thousands of years. Is that true? What are y'all thinking of this? Comment over in the chat room and see what you think of this. This is that kind of thing that takes a belief system to believe. First of all, that Sasquatch is channeling through somebody with a New Age name. That's the first stumbling block for me. The first scandalon, if you will, is listening to this stuff coming from somebody who's already New Age thinker. Remeldian says being on the same frequency helps when trying to learn something new. I get that, Remeldian. If I'm trying to learn something new about, say, Koine Greek, I've got to be tuned into learning it. I get that. Now, this is on a spiritual level. Can you spiritually tune in to Sasquatch? Would you get the same things? Now, remember when I talked, this just as an aside, I talked about the fae, the fairy folk, the elementals, that you could, if you wanted to attract them to yourself or communicate with them, all you'd have to do is you could go out to the woods, find a spot that speaks to you, sit there, just in the quiet. Go back there over and over again if you have to, and put out your intention. Now, are you going to get contact? In a spiritual world, in a world that is filled with spirit beings, which I believe we are, you're going to get something. Is this the same would be true with, say, Sasquatch? It's interesting. I start off being very skeptical of all of this, but at the same time, I find some possible truths housed inside of this apologetic. Sasquatch goes on. He says, you are bioengineered to be depending and vulnerable, needing external material support for your basic survival. This vulnerability keeps you afraid of blending with the wilderness through spiritual connection and bound to the material support offered by your uncivilization, which keeps you servile and submitted. I would call that being awake to a certain extent. Some of the same factors in that. Detach yourself from the dream world and be awake in the here and the now. That's not such a foreign concept. Our knowledge, says Sasquatch, is what your people has forgotten about your true origins, your nature, your purpose, and your destiny. This is why the lower powers that have taken over this earth are trying desperately to deny and cover up our existence. So the hairy man in the woods knows our true origins, our true nature, our true purpose and destiny, according to Moonbeam Sunbow. And what he says he's channeling. Could this be put to the test? Sure. You can go out there and try it yourself and see what you end up with. Takes a lot of time, takes a lot of practice. I call that a control mechanism, says Sarah Yusuf. There it is. Instead of the uncivilized matrix, yes, I get that. Sasquatch goes on. I'm not going to get through all of this if I'm not careful. It all started in the times when the civilization you know as Atlantis emerged as a new seat of powers for the Star Council on Earth. And the continents were divided between factions. Old Lemuria, our motherland, where my people and much later yours were first conceived and born, had developed into a planetary civilization with a network of colonies and outposts around the world, many of which have left remains that still can be seen today. That's all up in the air. We talked about Atlantis a year and a half or 2 years ago. Some interesting stuff about it. But the whole Atlantean culture as being a star council on Earth, that's where the jury is out for me. There is no way, other than in your own mind, to come to that conclusion. So you believe what you choose to believe about it, or what you imagine. Perhaps, now like for me, though, I have to throw this in. The experience I had in Egypt, the vision I had, the thing I saw and photographed. I believe that to happen because I experienced it. So, what's the answer there? Sasquatch goes on, nevertheless, after some time, a faction of star people based in Atlantis fell into the temptation of power and greed and went away from the greater divine law and cosmic order that they were originally meant to maintain and protect on our young Earth. After winning battles over our Earth and succeeding in pushing back invading forces, they claimed ownership and dominion over our home planet. Their claim was denied by the Council of Star Elders, keeping the cosmic order. So the faction of lower principalities rebelled and banded with the invading forces, and they've been fighting against. Sounds like the great wars in the heavens. And man became greedy, man became selfish. And is that just an interpretation of an event? Did all those events mentioned in Genesis, mentioned here, mentioned in other religious books, they take place? Was there a proto source for all of this that they all spun off of? Etiology in different religions to describe and try to explain it? It's a good question to ask. Romeldian says ego destroys Atlantean empire. So some think. How do we know that? That's the question I keep coming back to, Romeldian and everybody else. How do we know that? I don't know if we know that. Ryan Gale says, have you watched The Man Who Killed Hitler and then the Bigfoot? It's a great movie. Oh, The Man Who Killed Hitler and then the Bigfoot. I haven't seen that, but I've seen, wasn't somebody like Rutger Hauer was in that movie, or somebody that at least looked like him in the old ads I saw? It's an old movie. It's interesting. I'm going to have to look that one up now and watch it. Sasquatch goes on and says, they broke the covenant of the planetary watchers by manipulating genetics, breeding several experimental races of hybrids and slave species for their own interest and power. By the way, the Book of Giants, which was part of the Dead Sea Scrolls, talks about how early man did this. This is the story of the Watchers who came down on Mount Armon and went in among the women of the human race and inbred with them. It's the same story. So is it all the same story? Was there a proto-story? Let's see. Those artificially produced species, including giants, dragons, and monsters, were used as slaves and soldiers in wars against the Star Council of Elders, still based in, here it is, Professor Bauer, still based in Mu, under the firmament. So your most ancient cultures have kept the memories of those wars involving star fleets in their sacred archives and ancestral legends that have survived to this day. Man, I see a series of great novels. I got to finish my one novel, and then I can move on to this. I'm serious about that. Make a great novel. Although it's probably been done in some of the dragon novels and the giant novels, the monster novels, and so on. There you go. There's an idea. Spark of an idea right there, Sasquatch. Thank you very much. Sasquatch goes on. My people and your people took part side by side in those Star Wars, not capitalized, to maintain the divine law and reestablish the cosmic order of the Star Council on this Mother Earth, our home planet. But your people got divided. There's Sasquatch pointing the finger again. Your people got divided. Many falling under the influence of the lower lords based in Atlantis. Some of them were enslaved in their army, and we had to fight them. As time passed, the conquering powers of the lower lords devised new ways to transform again the genetics of your people, turning them into more easily servile creatures with less spiritual consciousness and psychic abilities to take over the whole world. Boom, there it is in a nutshell. That's what happened. That's what happened. But again, this seems to be another version of like the story of Atrahasis in the cuneiform texts, dealing with the Anu and Enki. Another version of the story of the book of Genesis and the falling of man. Again, are these all mythologies that have a common source? And all these different religious splinters out of it? Religions splinter out of it? Or the stories like this? Romeldian? Not Romeldian, I'm sorry. Romeldian, I don't know why your name rolled off my lip. my lips. I was going to say the reptilian. Oh, I hope there's no connection there, Remildian. Are you a reptilian? All of these different things that we come up with, are these just ways, mythologies to explain something that, is it all base and simple? Was it all just pure evolution? And there's nothing spiritual involved at all? I don't think so. Yeah, sorry, Remildian. I hope you take that as a funny joke and not personally, like get offended. So Sasquatch goes on and says, the new uncivilization that ruled your world has been banned from the Star Council, which left from our home planet until a later evolutionary leap. Those same powers serving the lower lords are still keeping this earth enslaved today. Through a combination of means, including control of the information. There's your informatica, Professor Bauer. Control of the information, indoctrination, mind programming, staged events in a series of advanced technologies. They want you to forget how they took over the control of your home planet and destiny through illegitimate means and have kept your people enslaved, making you more and more depending on new technologies. You know what this brings up? In my own book I wrote on the reptilians, I focused a lot on Freud and Adler being two of the fathers of modern psychology. And Freud looked backward. He says, who you are and what you want to be all has its roots in the past. Adler says, what you want to be in your best self is in the future, and you need to we pull ourselves toward that. So the big question is this another way where we say, we create our own realities? We create our realities by using stuff like all of this stuff mentioned here by Sasquatch, channeling Sasquatch, who is repeating the same old stories. Are all of these stories that we use as an etiology to understand why we are and who we are and where we came from? Is there truth to any of it? Is there a way to prove any of it? Is there a way to satisfy our curiosity to know if it's true? And by the way, what Ash said is we look to these things and we pull ourselves into them because they make us feel better about who we are and where we're going and what we're doing and why we're here. That was a psychological take on all of that. That this is why we need these belief systems in place of Atlantis, of Starseed, of a Star Council, of a galactic empire that's out there, which, by the way, I don't really say I disbelieve any of those things. I just don't have proof of any of those things. It's hard to believe when it's not in the black and white in front of your face. Come on down and introduce yourselves. Let's get it going again. Let's figure it out. I would think a lot of our woes would be eliminated if we knew we were only a small cog in a much bigger thing in the universe. Then again, you're going to have your capitalists, and I don't use the word capitalist as a negative word. You're going to have those who will capitalize and try to make the most money they can off of knowing those truths. So there you go. We've only got a few minutes left for the radio audience, by the way. We've got 1 minute left, and we got to get out of here. We're going to continue on with this in the captain's cabin and talk about more of this. Otherwise, I've got, what have I got? I've only gotten through about half the material here. We could stretch this into another night if we so chose. So let's kind of wrap on what we've already found out. So I'm going to ask you, do you find this information to be what you would classify as the most important information that's been ever shared with humanity? Ever. Period. Ever. Underscore ever. Is that the most important message? Is this if this is a true message, it would be an important message, wouldn't it? How do you qualify what is true and what is not true? There's the big question with all of this. So let's discuss this a little more in the captain's cabin tonight. Get your opinions, and if we don't cover the rest of this tonight, we'll cover the balance of this tomorrow among some other things. So let us right now say goodnight to the radio audience. I want to thank you all for being here over there. If you're not in the chat room already or over on the YouTube channel, come and join us, and we'll talk about this stuff a little bit more. Would love to have you over in the YouTube channel to join the chat room, or at least put in your 2 cents worth and see what's going on. So thanks for being here, and all of those of you over there in Radioland, live long and prosper.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid Radio Program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad so he can take me to Disneyland.
Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Captain's Cabin. It's our after show. If you're not familiar with it, this is a little time where it started as just a few minutes. Sometimes it goes an hour. We've seen it go a couple of hours after the show. Not tonight, however. But this is some interesting stuff to talk about. I see Sarah Yusuf is in the wings. I'm going to bring her in a minute. And let me remove my my big banner for the show, this one right here. So now it's just us. It's just us over here in the chat room, in the video broadcast. We're not on air over at the radio station. And so this is us. Let's talk about these things. Let's talk about what you think about all of this. I just saw a comment that somebody gave that I wanted to mention right away. Oh, Matthew said, where was it? You said something in here. I think it was you. Well, Romeldian says it's hard to prove something not in your own personal frequency. There are physical facts and there are spiritual facts. Sadly, physical don't last that long. Well, and I agree with you, Romeldian, to a certain extent. But that would be like saying, do you need to believe something then in order to learn more about it? What frequency do you have to be in? So in other words, to learn something about all of these various different types of topics that go along with this, you have to be in that frequency to learn it. You have to be in that frequency to understand it. Perhaps to a certain degree. I mean, it's like the Gnostics and the mystics. What did they do? They had their exoteric and their esoteric belief systems. The exoteric was to the outside. Hey, we'll tell you what we believe in short, and if you're interested, come on in. And maybe when you come in, that's where you get the esoteric knowledge, and you start understanding is something at a little more deep level, a bit more of a deep level. Matthew Sainsbury, this is what he said. Loss can do a lot to people. I heard that when Theodore Roosevelt lost his wife and mom at the same time, he took an adventure retreat to exploring North America. It's believed he met Bigfoot as well. I did a show on this, on Teddy Roosevelt's story of this. I don't think he personally had the encounter, but he felt what he referred to as the goblins. But he relayed the story of somebody that passed it on to him while he was exploring. And we talked about that particular event, and it wasn't pretty. Yes, Teddy Roosevelt, I remember I had this book called Mornings on Horseback, big thick book. It's the biography of Teddy Roosevelt. And in that, he talked about when he lost his mom and his wife, like within the same day or period of days. He wrote all he wrote in his journal was, "The light has gone out of my life." And it was later he started, this is how he dealt with it. He went exploring. I'm going to bring Sarah in. Sarah, how you doing tonight?
Hey, Scotty. It's a typical Monday.
Typical Monday.
Typical Monday.
So, Dave, Uncle Dave, are you talking about where did I find this information? This was all on skyshipovercashiers.com. This is Mary. I'm trying to think of her name. We had her on, John and I had her on our show once on the Intrepid radio program. Mary Joyce. She's the website editor, and she put up a big thing on Sasquatch and Bigfoot and how to determine if a Bigfoot image is real. She put up 14 photos of Bigfoot stick structures and how to tell what's a real one versus something else. So that's where I got this, Mary Joyce's website. So what do you think of all this stuff, Sarah? Where's your head on this?
Well, I mean, going from the message itself, it sounds like sounds like a lamentation of, the feeling of loss over,
Yes.
I guess, humanity's through evolution or whatever else is going on, that humanity had its own telepathic or, mental abilities that were interconnected with these other types of entities, whether they're what do you call them, star elders and the Sasquatch, the elder brother Sasquatch. So I mean, it makes me think that in the past there must have been like a mental internet, and where people were able to receive and give out information and something, some sort of event or something that happened, or through, through conflict and willful evolution, we've kind of lost that ability. We focus on more on the physical world, the body and certain aspects of the mind, but spirit, because it's all supposed to be interconnected. So and then they kind of go into how a new age circles and even in the paranormal field, they always talk about you have to raise your vibration. You have to you have think positively, and you in terms that you raise your vibration, then you learn to develop the skills, whether it's through like
a meditation type of a thing, and
no, I mean more like accepting information through dreams or astral travel, or that sort of stuff. I have
some weird dreams sometimes.
Yeah,
it's
like developing a form of telekinesis and PK type of activity. So and like with all of the biblical narratives and the Abrahamic religions, they talk about, of course, there are forces that want to lower your vibration, make you feel depressed or unsure of yourself, cause a grief in which you're not going to be able to evolve to that level and reach that sort of thing. There's a pretty good book. I mean, it's not a like a true book or anything by Napoleon Hill. He wrote a fake conversation I think it's called Conversations with the Devil or Overcoming the Devil or something like that, which he has this fake conversation and he goes through what holds people back, whether it's ego or fear or which prevents people from, trying to be successful in their life. I think that, you can find audiobooks on YouTube or in the library or the bookstores or whatever. It's a quick read, but it's very interesting. It talks about the psychology aspect of it.
That is like it's not the same exact topic, but I read a little book. I read it on a flight from Philadelphia to Minneapolis. I was finishing it as we touched down. That's how small it is.
Right.
It was a book written by Whitley Strieber, who is the man who wrote the book Communion. Remember, with the alien face on it, of his alien abduction experiences. He was a writer already. He was a horror writer. He wrote books like The Wolfen, which was made into a movie in the 80s. And he wrote stuff like that. But he wrote about his experiences. And then he went on to write 3 or 4 more books in that series. And that really became his whole life after that, was what he believed about alien life and why they visit us, why the abduction, why so on. And his book was called The Key. If you see this book anywhere, it's a little paperback, about 1/4 of an inch thick. And The Key. And he was writing about events where he was at a conference speaking. And he went back to his hotel room and somebody came and knocked on his door. And he said, my initial reaction was, ugh. He says, I spend all my time talking to people. Now they're coming and knocking on my hotel room door. And he opened it, and some guy introduced himself as Michael. And he said, unobtrusive-looking guy, middle-aged looking, 50s, something like that, if I remember the description, but soft-spoken. And he said, I've got to talk to you about some things. And he said, against my better judgment, I invited him in. And he sat down, he said, it was mind-blowing. And he says, I didn't take notes that I remember. He says, everything after he left, I had to sit down and write it all down for memory. And this book, he says, to my best recollection, what the conversation was about. But this Michael was somebody that was coming in and saying, and at one point, Strieber asked him, are you the Michael? Like Michael the Archangel? And he said he never really answered that question. But he brought up all kinds of concepts of things included in them were things like the Holocaust was something that wasn't supposed to happen. And because it happened, people that were supposed to have been born weren't born. And so this planet is not on the right path. But that was one of the things. He brought him in many, many things like this. And he was so moved by this conversation that the guy left a couple of hours later. He said, I had to write this all down. He said, I had to call my wife and tell her, remind me when I am writing this all down more formally that I told you this conversation actually happened. He says, because it did. And he said, and as it would be later, as he started going through some of his notes and some of the things he wrote down, he thought, did that really happen? Was I dreaming? And his wife said, yeah, I'm going to remind you, you called me and told me, remind me. So it's interesting. That's one of those kinds of books like that.
Yeah,
And,
I mean, there's several. Yeah, with UFO phenomenon in particular, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of books on Amazon who with people saying that, the MIB came and visited me and said, hey, don't talk about this, or they had an alien encounter in which they had a visitation, said, hey, you're going in this direction, don't talk about it. Right. Humanity's not ready for it yet, but
greetings, Professor Bauer.
They still
greetings, everyone. Greetings.
Yeah.
What you were saying about the visit with Michael is very reminiscent of the way angelic visits are described.
Yes.
They're described as the angel being sort of
shows up.
average, nondescript.
Yep.
It's really hard to say this is exactly what he looked like. There was a guy that was on Art Bell that did a dissertation about angelic visits, and that's what struck home with me because of my visit. That's when I realized, oh, that's what it was, because I didn't really see it initially as that. But the more I look back on it, the more I think of it as that. But they will be sort of a step out of time. They're dressed and nowadays we see them in a suit, but it's sort of it's not right for being a current suit. It's sort of like a 60s suit today or something like that. The lapels aren't right. The cut of it's just not current. And yet it's nothing flashy. It's nothing that makes you jump out and say, hey, that's unusual. It's just off. Mine happened at NAB, National Association of Broadcasters. I don't know if any of you have ever been, but it's a huge convention, happens in Las Vegas, and I was in a sea of people. And that's the only way to describe it. I was in the big showroom. I was walking down an area between pipe drape booths, and it must have been 10 feet across, and it was shoulder to shoulder people, and it was people in front of me, chest to back, as far as I could see in every direction. Okay. And I got to this intersection, and I said to myself, why am I here? Because I was ready to just walk out. And all of a sudden, this guy in front of me hands me a pamphlet, a nondescript, pale blue paper pamphlet. And I look up, and there's this man standing in front of me in like a gray flannel suit and a fedora. And I can't describe any more than that. It was just nondescript. And I take a hold of this pamphlet, and it says, why are you here? Because God has a purpose for you. And I had just thought those words, exactly, why am I here? And I looked up to say, hey, that's funny. And there was nobody there in front of me. And there was nobody for 20 feet in any direction of me. There was no way in the short time that I took the pamphlet from his hand and looked up from the floor that he could have disappeared. He couldn't have gotten back into the crowd in any direction. And what was shoulder to shoulder people, when I thought to myself, why am I here? I was now 20 feet from anybody in every direction.
Yeah.
And I cannot explain that.
Well,
and the fact that pamphlet was put in my hand just as I thought those words, I can't explain that.
Well, it's
in any other way than an angelic visit.
And Professor, I want to get your take on some of this in a minute. I had a similar type of experience as yours, Dave. I don't know. Let's preface it with that. I don't know what it really was. But I was at a conference in Minneapolis, a paranormal convention. And I stepped outside, and this is back in 2009 or 10. And out on the street was an elderly homeless man. He had, and I'm not making a joke out of this. He had a beard like yours, and he had scraggly longer hair.
What year was this? It might have been me. What year was this?
Might have been you. And he was skin and bones, and he was wearing a army jacket.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Not in 2009 anyway. He was wearing an army jacket, and he had his pockets were stuffed full of things. And of course, he was panhandling on the street. And I was out there having a cigarette, and he said, "Hey, could you spare a little bit for hungry," and whatever he said. And I dug in my pocket. I didn't have any coins, and all I had was a $10 bill. I pulled out the $10 bill, and I said, "Here, you know what?" I said, "You look hungry." I said, "If you're hungry, please promise me you'll take this and get some food." And he looked at that $10 bill. And he said, "Thank you." He says, "I got something for you." And he stepped back a little bit, and he's fumbling through his pockets. And he comes up with his hand closed like this. And then he takes my hand and not talking like this anymore. He's talking in almost a crystal clear, almost a radio voice. He says, "This is something I want you to have, and I was sent here to tell you that God loves you." And he puts it in my hand and turns and walks away. And once again, like you, I didn't think it's so mysterious at the time. I looked at what was in my hand. I looked up and I didn't see him anywhere. But it was a little cheap 2-cent nickel pendant of the head of Jesus in a circle from a Bible bookstore or something that you give out to Sunday school kids. And he put that in my hand and he said, he said at the end, as he put it in my hand, he's holding my hand. He says, "I'm going to talk to God tonight about you." I said, "Well, thank you." And then I looked, and then of course he wasn't there anymore. Now, I had asked at the time, was that angelic?
Where did he go? How could he have moved so quickly to get away?
I never saw him again through the 2 days of that event. So there's that interesting story. And now a skeptic would look at that and go, well, obviously you gave money to a panhandler who gave you a little Jesus pendant and off he went to get booze or whatever. I look at that and I recall my biblical teaching. Professor Bauer would be very tuned into this. Matthew Sainsbury brought it up. There's that verse in the book of Hebrews. It says, "And when you entertain strangers, use forethought and use your mind and be right about it, because many have entertained angels the same way, only unaware that they were angels." And or as the more poetic King James, as much as I hate the King James, many have entertained angels unawares. And so now, was he an angel or was he just an old Vietnam vet drinking, living on the street, starving, mentally tainted, for lack of a better word? He obviously, when I first met him, I thought this guy does not have all his dogs barking. But then he became so clear and crystal. "I'm going to thank you. I'm going to talk to God for you tonight," with no gruff in his voice, no nothing. And boom. I don't know. So there you go. Experiences. So an experience is, I say, worth 10 times, 100 times what you're taught. Who started talking? Was that Sarah? Was that?
Yeah, that was me. I was just gonna ask you both that. Does it matter if it was angelic or not? I mean,
Nope.
you both either
Doesn't
got
matter.
the message anyway, right?
Nope.
I mean,
Doesn't matter.
whatever the message was.
It doesn't matter because
it.
there was a strong message and it did something for me to be able. I don't want to say, I'm not one of those guys that go, "Oh, I gave, so I feel really good about myself now because I gave to somebody who was in need." That wasn't the feeling I was left with. The feeling I was left with was, well, that was really cool. And who is this guy? Where is he? I looked for him the next day too and didn't see him. So, of this event. And so, it was powerful, but what's the real message there? I don't know. So, was it giving on my part? Was it, being careful to be hospitable in that moment? Was it hearing what he had to say to me? I don't know exactly.
Well, I mean, the message should be what he said. He said that God loves you.
Yeah,
so.
God loves you, and I'm going to talk.
I mean, that's all.
I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to tell him all about you tonight.
Right.
Well, thanks. Cool. So I don't know, Professor Bauer, what's your thoughts on all this, the nebula of things we've presented?
It strikes me that there's 2 or 3 things nuggets that bounced around while you guys were talking. One, and the first thing that I think is most important is making sure that you have some kind of understanding of what the definitions mean and what they are as you use them.
Okay.
The whole concept of this being angelic is an ascribed term to an experience, which I think is more than just what that term angelic connotates. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that what you're talking about, and the most important thing is that what you just said at the end. If you have an experience, then that you can't describe. It doesn't matter to anyone else
Right.
that you've had it. That is your experience. Okay.
There it is.
So that's the most important part of sorting through this whole concept of
And
the
I can
informatica.
ascribe to that experience whatever I want.
You can,
and
and there's
then
a
I
boatload of definitions
base
in
a
other
belief
cultures
on it.
that might be more appropriate. Okay.
Yeah. So I base a
Um,
belief on that. So is that I
Well,
believe that this guy was
well,
extraordinary in some way.
I didn't
what
think
I'm,
of it as angelic at the moment. It wasn't
Yeah,
until
it took
much
a while.
later that I heard this guy on Art Bell talking about angel visits, and I was like, well, that's almost exactly what
Yeah.
happened, down to the gray suit.
yeah, and that's been one of the reasons that that term is appropriate for, you know, in a general sense for this experience. But the most important thing, so you can use that as a filter if you want, but there's a lot more is what I'm saying that's going on here.
Yes, I agree.
The second thing and the most important thing is the experience, because if you don't have the experience, you have no frame of reference. You have only somebody else's subjective definition of what these things are. Are there similarities and characteristics and habits and natures in all of them? Yes, that's why you can loosely slap a generic term over that experience. So so first is the term, dump that, put it aside. And then the most important thing is now look at the experience and see what that means. What is the data that's available, the information about your experience that describes it, that is available? That's as I've described my journey in my religious, my theological and belief system, going from Christianity, a Judeo-Christianity, to now a follower of Taoism. And that experience is only something, the reason I ended up at Taoism, because I found something that had a reasonable definition with words that I can understand, that I could apply to my experience. And I could say, that's really close to what I'm experiencing. So the third thing is, and this is where it gets all woo-woo, is all experiences come from energy. Energy is a set of frequencies. The entire physics and science that we use now is about to flip into what I call frequency physics, because they're looking in all the right places for the wrong thing.
Mhm.
And that is that everything is a wave, everything is a frequency, everything has a signature, and collective frequencies. We are collective frequencies. There is a signature for the frequencies that makes us who we are. Okay. If that is correct, and if that makes sense, then we are the whole interaction between what we call or think of as incorporeal, in other words, the heavens, the gods, the angels, the demons, the spirits,
The
the
whole cast of-
ancestors, all of this invisible yet energetically stamped stuff, apparently at a minimum. And I'm starting to question whether this whole concept of interdimensionality is even correct, or even dimensionality. It could be correct in the sense that all of these things exist in their own set of frequencies. It doesn't
Sure.
have to be an entirely different universe to have properties that allow the things that we are talking about.
The
And
crossover.
these things go from astral, out of body experiences, non-local consciousness, remote viewing, psychics, clairvoyance, clairaudience, all of the different delineations of sensations and experiences that people can have. They seem to be rampant. They seem to be a natural part of our consciousness, of consciousness being the supreme, right? You can call it the
Right.
supreme intelligence, the whatever you want to call it. The one thing is that we seem to agree on is that we experience reality through consciousness. So if there really isn't, it's not dimensionality and interdimensionality, if they're incorrect, and it's really more of a frequency shifting. So all the frequencies that exist, and you can get on this cosmic frequency band, and you can interact with the frequency sets that are there.
I
And
would
in the-
say theoretically, but then again, we have a lot of people who tap into some of these different frequencies.
That's what I'm saying, is that I think it's a natural part of the conscious. It's a
How
habit,
much is
a
theory? How much is
characteristic of
actual?
consciousness. We all have that access. And it's a matter of, there are some adepts that are amazing and could do even into, as Sarah was mentioning earlier, telekinesis, right? That's where you're physically moving objects with just the power of your mind. But I think that that's where the key is. I mean, all these different entities, I think they all exist in some way, shape, or form. The experiences you guys discussed where there was just instantaneous there and instantaneous gone, come tap out, right?
Right.
I think
Well,
that
Ryan
that
Gale
I
has
think
a
that
great theory. All of these things may exist, but they probably only exist on the inside of a black hole. Thank you, Ryan.
yeah, and the black hole
Always our
took
skeptic.
a black eye this week with
Yeah.
the James Webb Space Telescope. They're
Yeah.
now, so here's another example. This is going to be fascinating to watch, because this is the hijack scientific method of academia and establishment. What they just saw through this new telescope is something that shouldn't be there. The math, the models, the men and the machines have calculated such, and now data has come in to cause that to be in question, serious question, especially because of the original output of the men, math, models, and machines. They put in data based on this model and metrics of science, and well, thought is a whole nother subject, but they put in these calculations based on stuff that they thought they knew, and out came an answer. And then when they went and looked, their answer wasn't there. In fact, it was the opposite. So now they're going, we got to go have us a rethink, right? Because that you can't, if the metrics and the models and the processes and systems are putting out unreliable information, then you got to go see what's going on. You got to go check something is missing, miscalculated, miscalibrated, whatever it might be.
I just want to make a side note to Amanda that she lost her uncle today. We're sorry to hear that, Amanda. But she's tying this into a lot of what we're talking about too. She also went on to say, after that, she said, I can't be that pure to connect to all. I think you're responding to your idea of these overlapping frequencies. And then Steve posed a question directly to you. What would Professor think of me and my Gene traveling to Europe? Everything was so real, but Gene had been dead a year by then. Steve, was this something that you dreamt, or something it was like a vision, or what?
Yeah, what's the context of that, Steve?
The context of that, yeah.
And did you know she was gone?
Oh, I think he knew she was. She had died a year earlier. His wife, Jean.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
So what's interesting to me is that I've seen more. The experiences I've had in this realm, in this visitation, in this connected experience of what the hell was that, and why was that so exactly what I needed, or whatever happened, whatever the coincidences or the characteristics, more importantly, were that froze that experience in your collective memory. The ones that I've had have been more, I haven't had anything that's manifested. I've had waves of stuff blow through, kind of like a download wave. And sometimes it's direct in, sometimes it's weird. Sometimes it's across me and I can feel it come through. Yeah. But the point I wanted to make was about ancestors. As I was growing up, I knew that particularly my mom's side of the family, had a lot of people that I had at least was exposed to when I was a child. And some of these people were 2-3 generations behind them then. So it was a bunch of old people. And I had this strange sensation that when I was around them, it was like it was a group energy. It was something that they all knew about and they were all aware about, but they were just with it. It was a very strange experience, especially, when I was little, but, nothing profound. But I think that I have had more experiences and thoughts, particularly over the last year or two, where I feel like there's a my mom, dad, maybe even my grandmother, and a few others around that are tapping on my noggin.
Sure.
From the other side,
I get that.
I'm not necessarily hearing any. I see faces in my mind. They just
Can
kind of
I tell you-
materialize for a second.
Maybe you can relate to this, all of you, Sarah, Dave, Professor. The thing that is the greatest roadblock for me, or the greatest hurdle to maybe accepting or believing these frequencies or these other things, or the people tapping on your shoulder or the top of your head or whatever it might be, you get all of this stuff. I'm very accepting and open to all of this stuff, but you know what stops it in its tracks? It's the old tendrils of my old theological lifestyle. All of those things come back, and it brings in the questions of doubt. It's like, well, that's Satan, who does that. It's distracting you. And it's not that bland and straightforward like that. It's just those are the thoughts that come to you, and you say,
after everything you've experienced since you left that.
We're so indoctrinated by the things that we buried ourselves into for so many years.
Exactly.
So inculcated as part of who we are.
The programming has been complete.
The programming has been complete. And you can't just erase the programming. And Dave, you were saying what?
After everything you've experienced since you left that, though.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've been with you for some of these experiences. You can't explain them any other way than what they are. They're spirits talking to us through a box. They're people grabbing a hold of somebody's hair and pulling it right in front of you, and clearly there's nobody there. Okay. We've witnessed all these things with our own two eyes. How can you then allow that skeptical voice in the back of your head come in and say such things when you know what you're seeing with your own two eyes?
Yeah, what Dave said.
Yeah. And that's the conclusion I come to as well. But then I find myself when I want to present.
Are you secretly a Democrat? I don't mean to get political here, but they're constantly telling us, don't believe what you see and experience. You're in a good position. The economy's doing good.
I'm one of those semi-fascist.
Same here.
I'm not a Republican. I'm an independent, but you get what I mean.
Have you noticed how poor? I mean, I look at when I see the stream of data, I look at the parts and I try to chunk them up so I can look at them individually as well as collectively as best I can, so I can see what's in the stream. Because it might look like a nice stream, but there's turds in there or something else going on, and you do not want to get in that stream. So you have to look in there. But I got to tell you, the abject failure from a marketing, advertising, humor, and just plain being able to explain what you think is at such a low level. It's just absolutely. It's hysterically sad because you look at it and you go, excuse me. I mean, the headline on something, at the minimum, the content doesn't support the headline.
No.
Or at worst, there is a data in the body of it that contradicts the headline. Yeah. And you look at it and you go, now, how much of that can somebody actually take? Because the problem is that you have two choices. You can swim through it, hopefully your bullshit filters are finally calibrated, and you pick up the stuff, and then you see the stuff and you go that contradicts it, and you go, what? Excuse me, I don't. Whoever not only wrote this but then approved it and put it into whatever. And this applies not only print, obviously online and even in the shows. And that's where it gets even more hilarious, because you see people say things. There's and a lot of it is that was your inside voice. You should not have said that. The whole thing with Zuckerberg and Rogan, I think, is just one of the classics of it's just going to change a lot of things as people start really digesting what went on and what was said.
Yeah.
And it's at a point where it's so obvious that what you're seeing with your own eyes is not what you're hearing with your ears. It's like two movies on one screen. And you look at it and you go, there's some really interesting shit going on here.
Yeah.
And it's all compressed and it's all got matches under all of it.
Do you know what I find very interesting about that? And folks, we're not turning this into a political discussion, just examining a couple of things in this context of what we're talking
I wasn't
about.
talking about politics. I was just talking about just the regular
what
stuff
amazes
that goes on.
What amazes me is that in the context of those political points, the things that are being said and so on, that one side can look at that and go, that is the most nonsense I have ever heard. And the other side will start, oh, the truth hurts you too much, doesn't it? Type of thinking.
But,
and
they're
whatever they
clearly
can to
boldly
defend
lying to us.
What's that?
They're clearly bold-faced lying to us.
And they know they're doing it.
Yeah.
And people are supporting it for the sole
It's not that
purpose of
many people. See,
supporting
that's
their
part
party.
That's part of the manipulation of this entire meme of the enlightened, woke, progressive ideology, because it's a mixture of shit. But what it's doing is it's focusing on what has been defined by words, the categories of the oppressed or the disadvantaged for whatever reason. And they have taken it upon themselves to enfranchise these defranchised groups and categories of people, the inclusive collective of a set of alphabet letters from the alphabet that you don't know where it ever ends, or you know where it starts, but you know where the thing's going to end.
Right.
And it's a mishmash of trying to take and control the emotions of everyone else by ginning up this whole narrative around the oppressed and these groups, and giving empathy to them, okay, and then fueling that noise. But there's not that many of them. That's the thing. The thing is that they're so loud, they sound way bigger than they are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is not anywhere near the majority, in my opinion, of the basic ideology of people who have been born here, who live here, who are here because of America. Okay.
Right.
That's everybody's coming here because this place is the shit. Well, it's what they're doing is creating little shit piles in their own areas because they can control that, right?
Exactly.
So there's more control because there's a concentrated group of them there that are in authoritative and enforcement roles and responsibilities. So they can go create these small places, get everybody ginned up and watching it, sharing it all over the place, get everybody, just ginned up and make it look like it's a big deal. It's not. And that's one of the key, and this is in my opinion, because right now they hold the bullhorns, and they have, and the public squares, okay, so-called public squares. Well, the people have been going in and they've been listening to the bullhorn, and they're going, I gotta turn that off. That's why a lot of the narrative that you're seeing, where it is created and provided, the amount of people that are consuming it has been dropping. And it's been dropping a lot.
It's very interesting. I saw a graph that was put up today talking about the position over the last few months of who's going to control the Congress in our country. And it had the Republicans in red, and it was way up here, and the Democrats in gray. It was way down here, or blue probably. And it's going like this, though. It's getting to the end. It's coming down where they're almost right on top of each other right now. So they're saying a few months ago, I remember hearing in the news, hear people say, "Oh, the Republicans are going to sweep Congress," and I said, "Too early to say that."
If you believe any set of data, any statistics, any graph from anybody for anything, if you believe it without vetting it yourself, you're not informed.
Well, that's very true.
And the problem is that, and if so, two things. One, experts used to have street cred. Okay, they used to be able to deliver their shit, and that's why they were experts. But as I went on some other show, the problem has been all experts, every discipline, everything that you can think of, from public to private to health, anything, any knowledge domain, you pick it. They've all got it wrong. There are individuals within them. There are not only individuals within them, but there are individuals who are outside of that entire paradigm,
right,
who have come up with even more interesting information and research and data that is now being proven better than the experts. In fact, they were on the opposite side. Now there's a whole bunch of shit coming out going, we might have to apologize. You know, the whole thing with Aaron Rodgers, right?
Oh,
the Green Bay
yeah.
quarterback, right? Did you hear that story?
Bits and pieces. I wasn't overly interested in it, but
I wasn't either. I just stumbled on it, and I heard it was on Rogan, and so he talked about what happened. When this is a year ago, before going into, I'll try to summarize it. He couldn't take the COVID vaccine because he had an allergy to PEG, which is a part of the contents of the vaccine. So he went to, prior to even getting COVID, he went through these natural processes, found through Rogan some people that practiced a certain technique. He went and did it. He was great. But going into camp, all of the from the coaching all the way down to his teammates were just totally on his ass. You are endangering all of us. You suck. Doesn't matter that you're great. You're taking your personal responsibility more importantly than your responsibility to us. So you can't work out. You have to have all of this stuff. You can only be in certain areas.
Like
and all
they're doing with the military right now by
right?
segregating out the unvaccinated.
Exactly. And now what's happening is they're finding out that none of the vaccines or the masks made literally no difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
Steve Clark, total shift here. Steve Clark brought up something earlier, and he really wants to get an answer from you, Professor. I would say that I once had a very vivid dream that I axe murdered a guy that looked like Woods, James Woods. And I woke up and I thought, that was really vivid. I've never axe murdered anybody before, but man, I felt it in my hand, and I like James Woods. I didn't have a problem with it. I thought today,
I thought you were going to say you enjoyed swinging the axe.
Yeah. Was I hailing back to a movie of his I didn't like or something or what? I don't know. But
so Steve is asking, let's see, after saying that I had gone to bed when it happened with Janine and I in Europe and never been there.
He had a dream that they went to Europe.
And it was after she died?
Yeah, she'd been dead a year. He dreamed that they took a trip to Europe together, very vivid. He's never been to Europe, but they went all over the place apparently.
Well, that goes back to what I was saying about the field of frequencies. Sure. If interdimensionality or dimensionality just in its basic form, it may not be the right definition for what is actually happening. And what's happening, in my opinion, is that the set of frequencies, you think about your phone, think about anything where your computer, internet, you're not connected to anything. You can't see. You are connected to a radio frequency, but you can't see it, right? But you know it's there because your phone and your computer are working. So I think that it's really, and this is why I call it frequency physics, I think that it's this the reality is this vast set of frequencies. And those frequencies are made up of what consciousness appears to be very creative. It has this habit of creating things like us, right? Or the way we perceive us. Each time that happens, there's this frequency signature that is established for that entity. That frequency signature is infinite. It stays within the consciousness. It stays within the fields of frequencies. It is a part of, if you want to call it the Akashic record, I think it's more like a cosmic solid state drive or a quantum type level processing thing. So the frequencies, we all stay. We are always here. We just don't see us here if we are not here. But if we are not here, then we are there. And that frequency realm is a place that has all kinds of it has common characteristics in that there seems to be these angelic types, meaning good folks. There seems to be these evil demon folks, and they're not so pleasant. And they seem to come in and cause chaos and do shit. They come in, they do their thing, and they disappear, right? So they're frequency shifting between these different frequency fields that are in the set. So to answer the question, from my perspective, just like I was talking about the sense of ancestors, like my mom and grandmother, even my dad showed up in a dream, and he died like 35 years ago, and I haven't had him a dream in shit I don't remember. So I think that all of our entities exist. We transition from this physical realm back to this field and this energetic realm. And it's quite possible that the signature that was Janine, his wife, decided to do a drive-by.
Sure.
And I think
I had a dream where my dead aunt called me on the phone. Now I had phones and I knew what they were, but is that a piece of that frequency, like perhaps with Gene? There's something that picks up and they communicate something to you. So.
Well, one of the things that we hear in literally all of the different civilizations, especially indigenous tribes, and we see this in South America, Indonesia, they have, and in fact, it was cool. They covered it in the Doctor Strange movie about the imbuing of specific energy fields into objects.
Okay.
So that object will contain that. And you guys know about this. It's, that's what a wand is, right?
Mm-hmm.
They went over this in Harry Potter. But you can take energy.
It's magic.
It is magic. But you can, apparently, it's a regular practice, a part of the nature of the reality we inhabit, the consciousness that creates it. There's this ability to take and imbue energies and signatures into symbols and into objects, and they become, and that energy apparently stays there. There's all kinds of stories about curses. Hell, the Hope Diamond one is just really bizarre.
Oh, sure.
Follow that thing.
King Tut's curse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And now we got the Oak Island. I think they're coming up for another season. Are the brothers going to find the treasure? Is this it?
Well, I think they'll find.
Is it this season? Steve Clark says thanks. By the way, he gets it. So
thank you, Steve. I'm glad that ramble made sense to you. But so it goes back to what you were talking about with the entities of Bigfoot, right? That as the elder talked about what the characteristics were, and particularly that they were here to help and be involved in some way, shape, or form. I mean, that seems to be another one of those common themes. Every time there's either an entity from the sky or from underground or just poof materializes right in front of you, they seem to be from an older, wiser, tenured being, energy signature, right?
Yeah.
And they have their own unique characteristics and quirks and peccadillos and all that. But they seem to just manifest in this energy field. So I'm kind of thinking that this is something we all can do as a part of being in this reality of consciousness.
By the
That
way, I
goes
think
back
Dave
to
just died. Oh, there he moved. He
I
moved.
put him to sleep already.
I saw
I'm
his
just
phone
listening.
wiggle, and then he.
I'm
flopped
just
back
listening.
that. When, Dave's gone from us now, but his memory
So-
lives on.
So I think that if you look at the reality that we're in from a perspective like that, this you're just a frequency. You're a frequency set. You're not just one, but you're a part of the greater creation that apparently this consciousness, which one of its main components is energy. And it has all these incredible other habits and natures. And I think laws is the wrong thing. I think we need to get rid of, thinking of things from the reality and of nature, at least from the perspective of law. Law is something that's anthropomorphic. As we come up with that shit because we need to herd the crew, right? Everybody's
Right.
not only not getting out of hand, but they're, participating and contributing. So the Bigfoot being an interdimensional being, I think is it's a frequency shift. It's really curious to me is from the standpoint of the form that it takes and the habits and the characteristics of the encounters. It seems to be like a large, hairy mammal.
Mhm.
Well, we haven't had those, at least from the data we've got now, like ever, except when you guys started getting into the giant skeletons and all the other stuff that is all over the place, particularly here in North America. But that's curious to me. I'm kind of wondering, well, if they're here to help and they're interdimensional, and you can only find these cats out in the woods, and I mean they are stealth as shit. I mean they're, what is it? He's the world champion of hide and seek. So I find it very
Harder
curious.
to find than Waldo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The evidence you mentioned, footprints and different things, is like, yep, those look real to me too.
Yeah.
But
some of the imaging they're doing, they did like it's not LiDAR, it's a step beyond that. It's something else they were doing. I saw in this expedition show, and they flew it over with a drone.
Oh, I know what you're talking
like
about.
the
Yeah.
LiDAR, the 3-dimensionals, and it changes. You can shift around and look through everything. You can see all the trees.
That's thermography with that's taking pictures. So those are, each one of those are pinpoints, and that's what they used in Skinwalker Ranch at the end of last season.
And they saw
these bizarre structures that just didn't make any
sense. What
sense.
was interesting, the Bigfoot one they took, they saw something in the woods down in the line of trees, and they zoom in on this thing in this 3D LiDAR thing, and it caught it like in a couple of different, it was almost like a double exposure where you could see the form of the Bigfoot, and he's looking and then moves. And you could see the whole body. It was very misty looking, but then it was gone. And it was very interesting that with this technology, they caught something. So
I think the tech that's out there now and what we're about to see with the tech we have, and then what we're going to see after that with the tech that is coming, it's just like this James Webb thing, right?
Yep.
The Big Bang just doesn't make sense. It's a mathematical theorem that is because the first thing you ask is, okay, well, if the Big Bang was, then where did it happen?
Yeah.
And where was that place? And then where was the place that place was? And on, I mean, it's an infinite
probably
rollback.
In the center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always love the idea that, people go, the Big Bang is like, so let me get this. And, there's no intelligence, whether it's religious or whatever, but there's no intelligence created universe. It's, it's the Big Bang, poof, there we were. And so I always ask this question.
Oops, Big Bang out of nothing.
Explain to me how something that's supposed to be infinitesimally small and infinitesimally dense, so it's infinite in both directions, decides all of a sudden to become finite and unfold into its finiteness. There must have been some instruction set
Something to make that happen.
said, so you're going to go from infinite, now you're going to go finite, and here's the way you're going to roll. I mean, something happened. Okay, so there had to be an instruction set somewhere.
That implies God is a woman, because man, if God is a male, he would have tossed those instruction sheet aside and just let it happen. I know what I'm doing.
That's
not
right.
My, I got my first universe. It's not my first universe. I know what I'm doing.
Hold my beer.
And then go, whoa, is there a way to stop this? It's just it's expanding. Where'd those instructions go?
And all of a sudden, that whole saying of "step back," I don't know how big this thing gets.
Right. Whoa, yeah, it's like whoa. Okay, everybody, move back.
Whereas the goddess would be no. That goes in there. It says clearly right here. That attaches to that with this. You got to have this. No, you got to have this. You're not taking this. You need this.
What does the God say in return? God says,
I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing.
Just stop nagging me.
I've in my relationship,
that is how you get giraffes and platypi and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Like
you're chewing on.
I had parts left over. So I just put those together.
Every relationship I've had has taught me a new way to do the dishes. I mean, I didn't know that there were that many ways to do the dishes. And apparently mine was not on the list of acceptable ways to do the dishes.
Dave knows my wife, Rainey, very well. I've been doing dishes since before my wife was born, but I still can't do it right.
Yes, right.
No, you don't do that. You have to do it this way. Hey, I know how to wash dishes.
The whole purpose of having kids is to have something to wash dishes.
That's right. Oh, yeah. Bring that up with Flynn, Uncle Dave.
My kids have outgrown the dishes, so I have to have more new ones. So,
yeah,
Sarah, you've been awful quiet over there.
Extremely quiet.
Any of this make any sense, or are you just going, I'm out?
No, I've been listening in. I mean, aside from the whole marriage stuff, I can't really say any of that.
I can't say anything else you're saying, but the marriage thing I get, she says.
No, I'm saying I'm not married, so that's outside my purview of what's going on.
Oh, got it.
But yeah, I mean, we do have our theories about men, also about them not doing things correctly, so that we don't ask them to do it later in the future. So there's also that conspiracy theory. So I mean,
well, I've heard that
world of men. So
I tried to use that once, and it was like, hey, you told me how to do it last time, and that's what I'm doing. No, you're not doing exactly what I told you. Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. How about if I just don't do it so that I never have to screw it up again?
Ours was folding laundry because she ran the that area of Target for so long. Everything had to be folded the Target way. All the shirts had to be folded like that. All the towels had. The kids all knew. In fact, we would be shopping at Target, and Dylan, when he was 8, would see something that somebody had unfolded on the shelf. He'd pull it off, he'd refold it and put it back on the shelf in the right place that it was supposed to be. Yeah.
My kids are like oblivious.
Stop fixing this to shelves. We don't work here.
I'm like I said to one of my children today, the youngest Ellery, and I said, "Well, what? Why did you just walk over the wrappers, the candy wrappers you just threw on the floor? Why'd you walk over those instead of pick them up?" And she goes, "Candy wrappers?" So become conscious of your surroundings. I keep trying to teach my kids. But it's like the whole marriage thing, Sarah. It's like that meme I put up about a week ago. It shows Sauron from Lord of the Rings, the Christopher Lee character. And it says me. No, it says wife. Wife says, "Fine, I don't care. You go do whatever the hell you want." Me. "Oh, so you're okay with it then? I think I'll go." And then it's got Sauron saying, "I see you have chosen death." So that's the married life. That's
Well, I mean,
you know-
it's the emotional connection. I mean, there's
right.
you
Right.
know, there's the emotional
I
component.
I
which
am.
men
It's
tend
the
to
emotional
gloss
connection
over.
is great. The passion is good. The emotion is good. It's the practical, the day to day.
It's the murder and death part that always
The
gets
murder and death part. But have you ever thought of divorcing your wife? No. Axe murder, maybe. But
Hey, I
not
saw,
divorce.
we were talking about statistics earlier, Scotty, and how, reliable they are and how you should always believe any chart you see. And I saw one that said that marriage was the leading cause of divorce.
Well, there's some truth to that.
Well,
Right?
Yeah.
Amanda, that should be CDO. It should be in proper alphabetical order.
CDO. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I have this thing where I say, I've said this to Dave. I never say this to my wife. Well, I have in other ways, but I've said to Dave, and here I am, Dave. I remember the first time I told you this, it was like 55. I said, I'm in my mid 50s. Now, I'm 61 years old. And do you think I know how to make a fucking decision on how to wash the dishes? No. I got to do it. I'm a kept, owned, enslaved male. And nothing I do is right. I don't know shit. And, that's the way it comes out in the practical, separated, compartmentalized from the loving passion, excitement, blah blah blah, and it's guys.
When I
Well,
thought
you're not
about
married, you don't know
You
shit.
do realize it's a symptom of something else. It's not about the dishes or something else going on.
Oh,
Well, yeah, and this is something that I was going to add to that is that when I realized several years ago that as I was doing my own review of my own relationships, that different, trying to identify different characteristics and commonalities and patterns and all that, and one of the things that I noticed,
you start to laugh. Okay.
one of the things that I noticed
Make a
was
flow chart as he does.
Yes,
right.
I made this pie chart.
Let me just graph this out and check some metrics.
Pie
So
I have
the
not
one
yet
thing
eaten.
the one thing that I noticed as a common characteristic is it tied right in with what people have said as as a meme about relationships, and that is this: women, when you meet, you have this this chemical electrical reaction and resonance that works, right?
Right.
And
That's the meeting.
and yeah, and
The
basically
meeting chemical reaction. Doesn't
right.
mean
And
that's over here.
initially, anytime somebody meets someone, for the most part, they're meeting your representative. Okay, so it's your best self for the most part. You're going to try to make sure you put on a good impression.
Right.
So you're going to tailor and model and prim and primp and swipe and stink and show up and say, here's what you can buy right now on the lot, lady. Right. So, and for the most part, men, I mean, we can't do too much to who we are. We are just a meat sack with an on and off switch. We have little quirks and peccadillos and so forth, but we're pretty much either on or off.
When they're looking over what's on the lot, we jump.
We're
right
not complicated
under the hood.
Right. We're not complicated. We're we may have our, stuff, but for the most part, we're pretty simple. Right. Yeah. Now, women, on the other hand, I mean, when you go on that, you meet them, and I mean, they have taken all of that stuff about making them their representative as awesome as possible very seriously.
Yes.
Right. So you go slopping in, being man and whoever, and you are, and that's pretty much what you're going to get. That's just what you got to look in the closets and stuff to decide, how
man is simple.
How often a man he is.
Good.
Woman is in there going, this is what I'm selling. You're going, shit, I'm buying that now.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the thing that happens,
my money.
The thing that happens is that that initial chemistry, that love or lust, mostly lust, just it fuels for a while. And for the most part, during that while, the man doesn't change much. He's happier than a pig in slop. He's not trying to rock the boat. He is keeping right on the path that he showed up with as much as possible. In the meantime, the woman is, maybe you're she's at his house, right?
Yep.
She's in there going through your shit, going, why do you have this? This needs to be cleaned up. Why are you, okay, we're going to have dinner, but afterwards you're going to do dishes with me because I'm going to teach
Why
you.
Why don't you have a different clipper
how to
for
do
your
dishes.
toenails and your fingernails?
Right?
I don't know. Meat good.
and obviously I'm putting some hyperbole and otherwise in here, but my point is this. The default position seems to be that women get together with and marry men hoping that they'll change. Men get into the relationship with a woman and marry them hoping they won't.
Yeah.
Because that first part of the meet and the greet and the meet after the greet, that's got a level of frequencies and energies that you're both feeding off of, and you're going, I'm in it.
12 years in, the guy's buying roses to say, hey, you ran out of roses to wake up with in your teeth.
Yeah, I mean, so it's kind of my point is that in the programming of the culture and the societal fabric, there is, and particularly, Sarah, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, because there's a lot more guidance and requirements for women in the Muslim belief system, but it's in the Western, women have been programmed to, all right, you're going to get the guy and then you can fix him. There was a great, what was it? Roseanne Barr show. What was it called? Roseanne Barr?
Roseanne Barr show.
Roseanne, yeah.
Oh, Roseanne.
Where she's sitting around a table with the workers at a break, and they got a big box of donuts. And the women are complaining about their husbands and, what dips they are and all this. And one of them looks over at Roseanne and says, well, look at Dan. I mean, he is awesome. And how did, has he always been that way? And she's got this donut and she starts picking off the frosting and throwing it in her mouth. She says, you don't think he came that way, do you?
Pretty much.
Takes another bite and I had to take all of his family stuff, take all of his buddies and friends stuff.
There was one old comedian. I don't even know if he's around in a different form now or not. Emo Phillips, you remember him?
Oh yeah.
He did the emo comedy. Said something like, and this was years ago. He said something like, "Some people ask if I'm married. I say no. I haven't surrendered to that particular form of tearing out my guts for the next 70 years." So, it's something like that. I'm paraphrasing it. But, that's, my husband didn't come that way overnight. And
I have to be honest.
Women think they have to mold us. I do think that.
I don't really have the dishwashing thing that you guys have, because I just say, kitchen's mine, get out. And they do, because then they don't have to go back in there. They're like, oh, okay.
Really? That works?
So, oh, yeah. When you're a chef, they want you to do all the cooking, so they don't have to. And thank God, because I look back at the women I've dated. If I couldn't have cooked, we'd have starved.
See, now I cook. My wife cooks. She's not like a gourmet, but she cooks, and sometimes she comes out with some pretty wildly good stuff.
Rainey is an awesome cook. What are you saying?
What is this stuff? It's rice and celery. Boy. But then other times, I get to cook, and I cook, and I always cooked. Dave,
you always insist on putting flavor in everything.
I like flavor in things. And so Rainey's like, there is nothing I can cook that Rainey will not find fault with. It's like, why didn't you put paprika in this? I never have my whole life. Well, don't you know this kind of thing needs paprika? You don't make this kind of thing without paprika. Like, oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah, now you're in trouble, and you're gonna have to eat it.
There it is.
You don't have to deal with that when you just say it's my kitchen. Get out.
My kitchen.
So,
Out.
to
Out.
that point,
Damn it,
Dave,
spot.
my very first business I had when I was 18 or 19 was a janitorial business. So I did windows for Denny's restaurants, their foyer and their bathrooms, and then I had a clubhouse and a couple of other. But I worked all night and went and did janitorial stuff. So I was maintaining tile floor, 11,000 square feet on one of those machines, doing all that shit. So I and my stepdad was very regimented in making sure my brother and I did what we were supposed to before we could do anything else.
Good night, Barbie D.
Taught us a great deal of discipline and work ethic and all that. So I leave home, I start this business, and then throughout my life, I'm a cleaning guy. Right, I love to sweep. I love to.
Oh, I thought you meant as a married man. I was going, yeah.
Right, right. Vacuuming, doing the laundry, all that dishes shit. I do that, and that's just a part of my nature. So in my relationships, they didn't complain about anything. Fortunately, a couple of them could cook, but for the most part, I was the one keeping everything clean. So I didn't have any issues with other than, hey, when you do my dishes at my house, please do them this way. Right.
Right. Right.
They have to be done that way.
I got a thing.
You can go back to that sloppy way you do it when you go back home.
I got a thing about folding towels. Now, I'm not OCD. Dave knows me well enough because he's here is the only reason I reference it. He knows me well enough. I'm not OCD. I like my place to be neat. It's the people around me that thwart my plans. But like folding towels is a thing for me. I will take a bath towel. I will fold it in half the long way, turn it sideways, and I fold it in half, and then in thirds.
That's too many, man. Yeah, you're wasting a lot of moves.
Is your damage,
I have done that for years.
I mean,
then you put it on the shelf.
Would you dropped on your head when you were little?
You see a roll in the front and rolls on the side. You don't see the flap hanging out.
You fold it in half,
dude.
Lengthways. You fold it lengthways, fold it in half, and then you just roll it up.
You need some therapy. I mean, we need to call somebody. That's too. So, Sarah, what do you think about how does what we talked about
if you show me how to fold a towel, if you show me how to fold a towel, I'm gonna come over there and beat your ass.
I usually have to do this on a tabletop.
Is there anywhere we can shut off his video?
Big towel like this, big towel. You fold it in half. All right. See,
ladies and gentlemen, please pay attention while the fool in the corner folds a towel.
There it is. There it is.
I see a bunch of e-learning videos coming up.
Take it, you fold it in half, and then you fold it in half again. So it kind of looks like this on one side.
Fool on that
It looks like thirds, yeah.
Then you know what you do? You fold it in thirds. Watch. I go boom and boom. Look at it.
Good grief.
That towel now sits on the shelf.
Did your mother beat you with wire hangers until you folded these this way?
Yeah, I think she pulled out a ladle instead of the spoon one time.
All the like towels alike. The green and brown go with each other. The red and brown go with each other.
Ombre.
And so there you go.
Wow.
There's the towel. Now,
okay.
I remember
I thought Olson was the crazy one.
I went into a rant one day. Dave. This is way back when we lived in the New Richmond house. And I went into a rant one day. It wasn't an angry rant. It was almost like a.
Is Rainey downstairs?
She's sleeping. It was a please hear my plight type of rant. I said, look, and I opened up the hall closet, the linen closet, and I said, do you know what I had to do? I had to take all the towels in there and take them out and refold them. And I said, so they all fit and they were all stacked, and look, they're color coded too. And Rainey's like, that's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. The response. And I said, can we not have one little slice of civility and civilization in this madhouse of chaos. And she said, okay, I can give you that. So you know what she did? Out of love for me, she learned to fold towels my way.
Well,
She
there you
brought
go.
towels
That's a
up-
keeper.
She brought
I
towels
am
up to the upstairs
dumbfounded.
bathroom.
Yeah.
And I just noticed it the other day. She brought them up upstairs, a couple of towels, and they were folded my way. And
Okay. The
Oh,
only thing
oh,
I'm
my-
picky about is how the swords are cleaned.
yeah,
What
Well,
oil you use,
that's a whole.
how
Yeah.
they're polished,
that's when I
what you
take
rub
them
them
off the
down
wall,
with,
I
and what
polish.
you put them away with.
That's a whole craft that if you're going to handle them, you need to do it right.
Uh-oh. I don't know,
So-
Amanda. I don't know if this was meant for me, but we can't all go down with the ship, she said.
So, Sarah, I've been trying to get you in here. Tell us about
Sorry,
How
Sarah.
would-
Cut you off.
how would you?
How do you fold towels?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
How did
how?
you fold the towel?
Let's actually turn the camera on and you show us how you fold a towel.
It depends whose house I'm in. I mean, usually, I just do the traditional, let's see, 1, 2, 3 fold, but not, I just do it in halves. Or I do use the Marie Kondo method and just, fold it in half and roll it up.
the 3 folds is for washcloths and rags.
Oh, Jesus! You mean you're just so? This is the same shit
Mock
that
me
you
not.
do with, so you have to do the same shit that when you sit down at some fancy dinner with, 4 or 5 forks on one side, 4 or 5 knives on the other. All your little, I mean, it's really cool the way they have all that done.
If
And you
it
kind
were
of
up to me,
well,
if
at
it were
least
up
you
to
know
me,
what you're
our
supposed to
family
eat.
It's called a proper table. What you're trying to say, Professor Bauer, is a proper
our
table.
family,
Yeah,
Just work your way in.
What he
Yeah.
said. Yeah.
our family would eat at a proper table every night. And all I mean by that, it can be somewhat casual. I would love for our family to sit down at the dining room table.
Sometimes they
throw
just wear
throw a
sport coats.
tablecloth down. What's that? Sometimes they
Sometimes it'd be casual. Sometimes you just wear a sport coat.
That's it.
Exactly.
But I like putting down the tablecloth. I like setting the table.
So, Sarah, do
Um,
you do any of that besides? I mean, you sound like normal on the towel folding. Scotty's on some other.
Sound like you're somewhat normal.
Scotty needs some meds or at least a therapy session. But what do you? How do you view all this? The real question is, I mean, the men
Yes,
in
Amanda.
your culture are, for the most part, I think they kind of fall along the characteristics that I was talking about, right? And
No, men in my
No, they
culture
don't?
are pigs. But
they're what?
they're
Pigs.
pigs.
I wasn't gonna say
pigs. Pigs.
Pigs.
But
I mean, more piggier
just
than us.
listening from the three of you, it just reaffirms the saying that I hear over and over from the women in my office or women that I've spoken to, that when it comes to marriage, women are doing most of the compromising.
I didn't get that from
I
our
don't
discussion
know
at all.
I don't know about that. You're
How
hearing
do you
from
that
a
how
chick.
you see
Did
it?
we come across as a bunch of compromising idiots? I mean,
Well, I mean, you're talking about this sort of stuff, and you're having arguments with your spouses or whatever, and obviously there's an underlying issue that's not being addressed. It's not about the towels or the way it's done. There's something else going on that is being not addressed. Your needs are not being met. You're not happy about it. So, I mean,
Whoa.
looking
Are you
deeper
saying
into it.
that wanting a neatly folded towel is some kind of psychological
no,
disorder?
don't get lost in that rabbit hole, Scotty. Well, Sarah, what about the point that I was making about, for the most part, and I don't know if this, this delineation you see in your belief system, but for the most part, women try to change the men. And if the men are as piggy as you say they are, I would think that you guys got a lot invested. And if you at least get one that's kind of piggy, you can pick them, clean them up a little bit. And men don't want the woman to change.
Who rules the roost in an Islamic house?
Inside the house, it's the woman. Outside the house is, that's like more like considered the one of quote unquote men. Now,
So,
it's
so
kind
in
of-
other words, they're
Hold
good
on, let me
actors.
finish.
When they're outside, they don't act henpecked. They pretend they're in charge.
Right. But I mean, but in what it also has been lost over time because they said, oh, it's so patriarchal, it's genetic. Originally, when you look at the Quran itself and stuff, it's based on mutual respect, and you don't get that anymore. Even with when things are sort of flipped. Nowadays, if the woman is the primary breadwinner, more men are staying at home keeping the kids, that sort of stuff. I mean, when I talk to my older relatives and stuff, like my aunts and uncles and older generation grandparents, they're clutching their pearls saying he's cooking meals and cleaning. That's women's work.
We're getting some heavy feedback from somewhere, guys. I hate to say.
Is it me?
An echo.
It sounds fine on my side.
Yeah,
I just
can hear
muted. See if my mic was picking it up, and it's not. So
I don't hear anything.
getting a heavy echo of speakers being caught by the mic and playing back.
No,
Like an echo.
nothing's
Okay.
changed on my end.
Not
I
here.
can hear
Not,
on my
nothing
end.
I
changed.
don't have.
I muted my mic and I still heard it. So I don't know.
Check 1 2
I'm
1 2.
muting mine. Just
Okay, it's
Is it
gone
me?
now.
Okay.
So Sarah, you saying that there's a change that's occurred in
Well, I mean, it's family dynamics. I mean, specifically in the Quran, it doesn't say that women have to stay home. But I mean, culturally, just from observation, it's always been, a major delineation. Women rule at home, and men are taking care of the outside world, and then they, come together. The men comes home and they rest, and the food's taken care of. The kids are
And the woman waits on
put
him.
away and all that, but then they take care of the daily house stuff versus the other like that's the more the traditional household and stuff, which nowadays with the way society is going, it's even reversing and becoming more modern and equalized. Like the men will help out with the dishes or cook a meal, or I mean that would be even 100 years ago or 50 years ago, that would be unheard of. I mean,
Sure.
your one's in-laws would be like shocked and dismayed that they're in that the daughter-in-law is not taking care of the house like they should. She should be at home, taking care of the kids, they're having babies, on top of carrying a full job if they if they're working or if they're a doctor or whatever. They're expected to be super women at that point. But I mean, it's getting not to that point way anymore, because there has to be a division of labor for it to work, right? I mean, one can't do everything while the other one does nothing. So
yeah.
oh yeah.
So what about dating and pursuing relationships? Is there
I mean, there's nothing in the Quran about that, but I mean, traditionally, it's usually like, I mean, their family. It's like you would be your dating pool would be people or who they know is there. That there's it wouldn't be like somebody who you don't know anything about. The families know each other, so they they would know if there's a history of mental illness. This one has a temper. This who's suitable for some certain types of personality and stuff. But at least from my understanding of it, we have a different relationship when it comes to dating, sex, and marriage. Sex is on the latter end, post marriage sort of thing. And then you go over the 90% of compatibility before you even reach that. So I would imagine for most even if the sex is bad, you have 90% that's still good. So you kind of stick with it. I mean, of course, we have things like divorce and stuff in our culture. It's frowned upon, but it's not like, oh, kind of like the way the Catholics are with you're out of the religion if you
Right.
if you do. I mean it's a complicated things, and especially with there in terms of marriage and stuff, there is a lot of rules in that usually, like I'd say in mixed marriages, like if a Muslim girl wanted to marry a Christian guy, that would throw up a lot of friction within the family versus if it was a Muslim guy marrying a Christian girl, because they believe in that, whatever the father is what the kids are going to be. It's patrilineal. Whatever the father believes is going to be what the children are going to be raised in.
That's interesting.
That they are raised in. So, ideally, a Muslim guy can kind of has an easier time in her marriage than a girl would, definitely, in how, because they have more of a say in how the children are going to be raised.
So if you decide, a woman decided that she was going to buck the trend and the rules and restrictions, that would cause friction, obviously, within the family, within the community of friends, and so forth. But
not really the community of friends. I mean, just ideally.
What if he was a really nice, likable pagan?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a whole different section on that, but ultimately, for it to be considered, Muslim or Islamic, you have to do the recitation of the kalma, which is basically just saying that you believe in God, and God is
believe in a whole bunch of gods.
No, that won't work. But that you believe in God is the all powerful, blah blah blah, all that stuff, and then essentially, the heart is considered converted, and then you would be able to marry, as you would, even if they're not a practicing Muslim, like they don't have to pray 5 times a day or whatnot, as long as they accept, I'm
really good with the sacred geometry.
Yeah. As long as they accept God in their heart, then they're fine with it. They just have to recite the verses of the kalma, and then it would be okay Islamically, because then you just go through this ceremony, the nikah ceremony in the masjid, or wherever you're having that, and then you go on as you would. I mean, of course, especially with older generations, there would be friction.
Sure.
With, especially when it comes to children and grandchildren, because there's always that strong push of
born a Catholic, die a Catholic. Once a Catholic, always a Catholic. Born a Catholic, die a Catholic.
Until you get excommunicated, but
you get excommunicated,
right?
You're not a Catholic.
I'm sure the fact that I'm a Knight Templar would really upset them. So
it might
throw
don't wear your white cassock to the wedding.
You mean you're going to throw your Rosicrucian thorn in the middle of that?
Yeah.
But I mean, ultimately, it's religions that go by
Crusade,
the book or a book. So Christians, Judaism, Islam, they're all under the same Abrahamic tree, so that's okay. I mean, a pagan would be a little bit more difficult to.
What about an alien, or maybe a Bigfoot?
Right?
I mean,
as long as he recites the kalma, it's fine.
See, that's the same with all Abrahamic religions too, though.
So, I mean,
sorry, that's the same with all Abrahamic religions. It seems that Islam, Judaism, Christianity, they all have this thing of not being unequally yoked together, and you have to all believe the same thing in order to be married. And
yet that has been proven over and over again to mostly be complete bullshit, because most of the people who inter theologically interact and create their union, they knew that stuff going in. That's one of the more vetted type relationships, just on a base level, as you can imagine. But let me throw this little turd on the table. So
would you?
So, Sarah, you were talking about as long as they recite a passage, and that
Michelle. Didn't see you there earlier. Sorry, folks. Otherwise, I would have hailed your entry into the chat room. Good to see you tonight. Goodbye. Good night.
So they have to recite these words, and they have to accept God into their heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's the fundamental thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that the recitation of certain phrases and words, and even to the simplistic Om, and all of the different traditions, right? They focus on all of that are a set of frequencies. I'm going to go back to my
Certainly, yeah.
frequency thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
certainly.
So it's a sound wave that's in a frequency that when however you say them, whether there's a cadence or a certain pronunciation or the emotive quality of whatever the sound is, as long as you do those, and you do it well, apparently it aids in your ascension, either crossing over or into or up or whatever,
Right.
into a belief system.
Right.
So here's the turd.
Oh, here it comes.
What if you could communicate with these entities and these other dimensions and these other frequency sets in the same way, a la Bigfoot?
I don't understand the question.
What if there was a set of sounds and frequencies
Mhm.
and a cadence like having a religious saying like what you were talking about? What if those are just a set of frequencies to get you to be able to become one and do that ascension? What if
Right.
there's another set of frequencies like that, which would then enable communication with entities like Bigfoot? In other words, there's a sound set, a set of frequencies that if you can figure out what they are, then you could communicate with all kinds of entities, angelic, demonic, or whatever. And there's all kinds of science behind this, and including entities like Bigfoot.
Yeah, but I don't equate a Bigfoot with God, right? It's a different set of frequencies that you would say.
Well, okay.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe,
so,
but
I mean,
to me,
it's
that's what
called
the
it's
Gregorian
called
chants are
the
all about.
Shahada. You
Thank you,
basically
Dave.
you're saying there's no God but God, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. That's it. If somebody accepted that into their heart, there is the potential for marriage or whatever. But I mean, but basically,
Well, my question there is, how would you...
the most basic beliefs is, that's one common thread of commonality. You could, there's some Muslims
Keep
who
forgetting it's tomorrow.
believe in the
Amanda.
paranormal or not, not in the paranormal, or you can vary on 50 million other things, but at least you have one thread of commonality in common if you're going to pursue that route.
By the way, good night to Amanda over in Australia, where it's already tomorrow afternoon. So have fun picking up your kid from school.
Thanks for hanging out, Amanda.
Thanks for hanging out and all your comments tonight. Good stuff.
So you don't have then, is there any space, pun intended, or space aliens in the way the Quran it covers that potentiality or possibility?
I would love.
I mean, I'm assuming, we're assuming aliens are a type of race and people. It's not like a bestiality or anything like that. But I mean, there's stuff against that. But I mean, if
Amanda, by the way, Amanda, you should have Dave come down there. He'll cook for you for a month. So you and your kids.
And help you find gold. I'll bring my pirate boots.
Assuming that these aliens do have the ability to understand the Shahada, that would be fine.
That they do understand what?
The Shahada, the phrasing. There's only one.
So
one God
so what if they
the
said no, I'm not going to do that?
Wouldn't get married.
I'm from
really?
I'm from Sirius B, and I come here to be serious with you, and I want to get back to Sirius, and your whole thing is irrelevant. What would you do?
I wouldn't get with him anyway, no matter how many 8 packs of abs he may have. I said no, I'm not doing that.
Sirius B has got the men with the abs.
Right.
6 fingers on each hand, baby.
Well,
but there was one point I did want to make earlier, which it was way earlier before we Professor Barr started talking. So we were talking about Scotty in his having a hard time reconciling current ideas that are out there now with what he
sure. Yeah.
what he was had dealt with before in terms of religion. So my question is that those thought processes that are preventing you, but that keep you in a certain mindset that makes things less believable or not, how are they serving you?
How are the things that keep me in a certain mindset that doesn't believe serving me?
Yes.
You think about that for a second and let that sink in. They don't.
Okay.
That's the easy answer, is they don't.
So what would you do with that then? If something is not serving you, like in the energetic world, they talk about energetic maintenance and, like
right.
things that are not serving you, things that are not just, I guess, weigh on you or draw your
it's
energy
like I
away
told
from.
my son, my older son, Sam, who you know of, that has a long dispute with his mom. I wouldn't call it a dispute. Problems, issues with his mom,
right.
my ex. And after a series of events, he said, "What should I do with this, Dad?" And I said, Sam, the best thing you can do is tell your mom right now that does not serve my needs. It does not serve my I don't know the language I used. I didn't want to get too psychobabbly with it, but I said, you tell your mom that doesn't help me grow anywhere. It doesn't help me go anywhere. It's not serving me right now. So for now, I'm just not going to talk to you. I'm going to have to cut you off for a while. Which is what he'd already been doing. And now there are those out there that would say you can't do that to a kid and his mom.
Yes, you can in this situation.
You can in that situation. There are all kinds of different situations. So I told him, you just tell your mom, sorry, Mom, this doesn't serve my needs, and I got to let you go for a while. And,
well, I mean,
I had that talk with the twins when they were about somewhere between 12 and 14.
Yeah.
Their mom was pulling all kinds of crap with them. And her brother was in on this conversation too. The two of us were talking to the girls. I can't remember where we were, but anyways,
whose brother?
Annette's.
Oh,
yeah. And
I didn't know you knew one of her brothers.
Yeah, and the reality is, Annette's batshit crazy.
Oh yeah.
Okay, she is. And I said, you just have to accept that, girls. That's what she is. You can love her for being your mom, but you just have to accept the fact that you can't trust everything that comes out of her because she's batshit crazy. And you have to put things in a box and use them the way it works for you in your life, not for the way it works in her world. And her brother was like, yeah, totally.
Yep. I never knew you talked to him. I know which brother you'd be talking about, but I didn't know you ever had any contact with him.
Yeah.
So
I'm trying.
That might have been at the wedding. So maybe
no, because the girls were younger. They were like 14.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. I can't figure out.
Well, like in any relationship, there has to be an expectation of boundaries. So, I mean, he has to tell her, hey, this behavior, I want a relationship with you, but this behavior is not, it's not cool. It's not going to fly. And then, whatever, she does with that, it is what it is. But I mean, going back, to the, expectation of boundaries in energy work, there's concepts of energetic maintenance, or often you see visualizations. I can't talk now.
Easy for you to say.
Right. Of cord cutting, letting go of things that do not serve you, and keeping, it's like trimming your aura or of a bonsai tree or something, in order to forward and grow and evolve, that some things have to be, left in the past, left behind.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can apply that, to how your own thought processes are evolving. If
you don't know how surreal it is for me to hear somebody who is a Muslim talk about energy work. It seems antithetical to everything I had learned about Islam.
Oh no, there were real, but even in the Quran, I mean, the Quran itself talks about certain, that it's a magical world. There's magic there. There's a line, particularly, in the last three verses. I mean, last three sections are considered, the shortest verses, but they're considered, the ones that we use our bread and butter for protection and all that stuff. They're the easiest ones to remember, ironically. But there's specific lines that, say I really can't talk. Specifically against not tie, particular magics against not tying. So people who tie, who use intention to tie knots and cast their spells or curses or whatever that is. I mean, it's all through intention.
Sure.
You deal with witches?
Oh yeah.
How do you deal with them?
Oh, I mean, I haven't looked into that, but I mean, usually, it's through prayer. There've been occasionally.
You don't burn them?
Huh?
Throw them off a roof?
Burn them.
Well, I mean, it depends, I guess, which village you're in. But,
there it is. Yeah.
Right. It's a very, superstitious, even with our concepts of, jinn and all that, you keep places clean, you keep light all over the place where nothing can hide, all that stuff. There's a whole thing full of superstition. You don't go out, and women are not allowed to attend funerals. You don't go out at night at dusk, and where the jinn come out, and all that stuff. I mean, there's several superstitions I've learned over the years, but
that sounds like a lot of scary shit.
It does. It does.
I mean, just from the standpoint of, women not apparently having enough power or energy or state to be able to deal with the dark, and there's other restrictions.
It's not dealing with the dark. It's more like a preventative measure, because
that's still dealing with it, isn't it? I mean, it's looking at it as something that has negative connotations that you need to be prepared for.
Women always bring that stuff home.
The negativity.
I mean, culturally.
I see you've dragged in another witch.
That's why you need to keep them barefoot and in the kitchen.
There it is. There it is.
Oh boy.
And it's for your own good. I'm protecting you.
That's right.
Well, I mean, some of it, at least to me, seems backwards. Like some women, cover their hair because it's not to keep men or jinn from, from attacking you, or,
I can tell you, I've seen plenty of
going
women
out late at night in the event they'll be
tempting.
kidnapped or gang raped or whatever,
It just seems to me like that's just not a nice place to go hang out. I mean, it sounds like it's fraught with all kinds of adversity and danger and all that. And all I want to do is go out and have a drink and go back to her place. That's all I want to do. I mean, I want all that other shit.
Reminds me of an old like an old Dashiell Hammett novel. And the dame walked into my office, and she was dressed in a hijab and a long robe that couldn't hide her figure.
Yeah,
even
if you wanted to go on a date, it wouldn't be just you and her. You would be chaperoned.
Oh yeah.
So you would be chaperoned.
Oh, screw that, man! Now
who's paying for the chaperone? That's what I want. Who's paying for
it'll be like you have an elderly aunt, or
that reminds me of
your uncle. I mean,
no, that's just wrong.
One of my favorite old John
wrong.
Wayne.
Well, I mean,
movies.
it depends on your intention, right?
I just thought the same thing, Scotty.
You thought that my favorite old John Wayne Marino O'Hara
What got
movie,
patty cakes back there?
The Quiet Man, and he's courting Mary Kate Danaher, and they've got Micheline O'Flynn, the little old Irishman that's their chaperone on their date, and this is back in the 1920s.
You'll be having none of that patty cakes back there.
Not patty. He said, all right, you can go out front and walk together, and there'll be none of those patty fingers now. So, he was their chaperone to keep them from getting in trouble. So
Sarah, I mean, it sounds to me, if I deduce correctly rather than induce, if I deduce correctly, it sounds like for the most part, men in your culture cannot be trusted.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I would assume so.
now,
I mean,
is that,
at
do you
least from
think
what I've learned from my mother. So, I
do you
mean,
think that's from an
And
educational
she's an
standpoint?
unbiased source.
and yeah, I mean,
That-
but I
that-
mean, you have to remember that in our culture, we're not even allowed alcohol. So,
Right.
whatever's happening, it's done full on silver. Because
But they'll
I
go
mean,
smoke shisha all night.
right.
So,
I mean,
anyway,
anything that is considered a mind-altering substance, that's haram. That's forbidden.
yeah.
Well, it sounds like that's exactly what these men need. You guys need to go on a shroom festival and
There it
mellow
is.
these guys out so that you don't have to do all this other stuff to protect you from them. Because it sounds like they can't be trusted.
Well,
And
I mean,
tomorrow
they've got-
night we're going to have
you guys can
intentions
probably
are
Bauer,
highly-
Professor Bauer's solution to the Muslim issue.
right.
Well,
Yeah, I'd like
but-
to see you go to Jerusalem and fix that. Fix
Yeah.
that.
well, yeah, I mean, they got their own problems.
I tried.
That's it. All right, guys. Guess what? We've gone for an hour and 45 minutes with the Captain's Cabin, which is a record
Really?
in recent weeks. And I'm going to call it
4
quits tonight.
a.m. 4
There's so much more to talk about here, Sarah. We'll have to do this another night.
This is great. Thank you, Sarah.
And talk a little bit more about this. I love
Oh
picking
God,
your brain.
I
and
know I'm gonna
having
have to
Professor
read
Bauer
more.
pick your
My,
brain.
my mother's gonna freak out. Why am I looking up stuff?
Why
on
are you what?
dating? She'll be freaking out. Like, why am I looking up stuff on dating?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
American.
You're talking to 3 men online. You're looking
Oh
up dating.
God, that's a whole nother issue.
So, yeah, I'll bet. Well, you all have a good night. Sarah, thank you for being so open about stuff. Well, you always are anyway. I appreciate your brain. And thanks for being here.
Sure.
Yeah, thank
See you
you.
tomorrow.
Yeah, it was fun, Sarah. Let's do it again.
Yeah,
Indeed.
sure.
Only next time there'll be no patty fingers. Good night. All right, Dave, Uncle Dave, love you, brother. I'm
Sure.
gonna get rid of you though. See you.
Great as always,
Bye.
Dave. Thank you.
And you, Professor Bauer, same as always. Love you, brother. Appreciate everything you bring to the table.
I appreciate it.
So-
Love you back. And, if it wasn't fun, we wouldn't do it, right?
That's right. I'd find something else to do.
That's right.
All right. You have a good
All
night.
right, buddy.
All right, folks. That's it for tonight. We've gone a lot longer than we normally go, and that's okay. But now we got to get out of here. So we'll see you tomorrow night, same old time. And in the meantime, you know what? Live long and prosper.